No, he has used Tarkentown already,
Yeah.
I think.
I believe there
What
is
did
a
he pair
marker
with it?
on
Did he
it.
use that to finish off Inferno 4?
Yeah, I believe so. Towards the end of after the Piet claimed, he
Okay.
finished it off. Um, there is enough damage on board. It only has 6 HP itself, so he could trade his 2 early game units for it, which would cause the IG to live because it costs 4. So
Yeah.
he does don't have
Yeah, and if he doesn't deal with it, it could easily get more than a 2-for-1. Yeah, and if he doesn't deal with it, it could easily get more than a 2-for-1. So
Mhm.
might be that his best plan is just to crash those ships in. Now, what's happening here?
Think we're having some issues. Speaking about hits the field
My apologies
to
to
destroy the war
any
juggernaut.
viewers who missed that, but we lost video, and when we came back, both sides were making some big endgame plays. That's a Devastator from Craw being used to not only create a giant barrier in space, but also destroy that was brought out in the ground arena by Chris. It looks like we have 22 damage on Craw's base here and 13 damage on Chris's base. Now, Chris attacks with a elite P-38 starfighter, defeating the fleet interdictor, but it then uses its when defeated effect to clear the Zigarian starhopper, which then does some indirect damage. Lot of battles going on in space there.
Yep, and then I assume that was a triple dark rated Devastator that took out the Devastator from Spark of Rebellion as well.
Yeah, Chris managed to burst through those space sentinels, and I believe he was able to get the win there. Our apologies to the viewers for the limited video from that. We're trying to fix some internet problems with the stream, and hopefully that's going to be smoother as we move forward.
Yep, and it did, as we came back quickly, it did look like Chris chose not to trade into the interdictor earlier and instead keep it exhausted with Django, ultimately letting him take it out later when he was ready to finish the game, which was definitely an interesting choice for
Yeah.
sure.
I think so Chris able to get the win in a matchup that I think a lot of people would consider to be Piet favored. But we're going to see whether he can repeat the performance, and it looks like they are sideboarding now, and I don't know if those cards are coming in or out for Chris. I saw Lurking TIE Phantoms in there, which Lurking
Interesting.
TIE Phantom's a
Okay.
very strong card if not answered, but I'm not entirely sure I would want it against Piet, who has a lot of space units to potentially battle it out against.
Yeah, and it's not dealing kind of damage based removal, things like that nature, outside of maybe overwhelming barrage, but definitely a card I probably would choose to side out if it was in my main deck. So maybe he was main decking them, but
Yeah. Now, one other thing I'll say is that it is possible that the Piet deck is running some of the more traditional event-based removal that we see from Villain Blue, the power of the dark side and things like that.
yeah, the new Merciless contest, or I guess new from last set Merciless contest is also a good shout that Lurking Tie gets around.
Yeah, Merciless Contest is an interesting card. It's kind of just Power of the Dark Side, but worse, except Power of the Dark Side is so good that Merciless Contest is actually still pretty playable. And in some cases, it can actually be better depending on the situation.
Yeah, for sure. Especially in a deck that's, running Super Laser Technician, things you want to defeat if Django isn't playing in the ground arena. Merciless Contest is a nice way to get the ramp off anyway, while also
Yeah.
taking out a space unit.
Yeah, sometimes it's the card that's going to allow you to it's the card that's going to allow you to get a key when defeated effect at the right time. And that can be pretty valuable. So, we'll have to see where that ends up taking us.
Yeah, very excited to see if there's anyone brave enough to bring the new Grand Admiral Thrawn. That is quite a strong card in that deck as
Oh,
well,
for sure.
triggering double when defeated. So
I've even
we'll
seen
see if
people play
anyone
like
has it.
self-destruct in those Thrawn
Sure.
decks. Sometimes things can actually be an upside in the right circumstances.
For sure. So players are seem like they're done side decking, getting ready here to begin this second game here. We'll see
Yeah,
if
let's get ready for a
Django.
hopefully exciting round 2. Django
Yes,
Fett against Admiral Piet. Chris, having picked up the win in that first round, does have the
hmm
advantage, but a lot of people would say that this matchup is Piet favored, so I wouldn't count Craw out just yet.
exactly. And if you were playing Piet now, what types of cards would you be
I
looking
think
to
the
bring in
fleet
here?
interdictor.
If you
So when I was playing Piet, one of the biggest things is you really, really, really want to ramp, and so I think the ideal hand would be something like Doctor Pershing. Doctor Pershing, Super Laser Technician. Pershing can kill the Super Laser Technician, so there's that. or a resupply, and then you have like you want that fleet interdictor there to be an early obstacle in space, and then maybe an overwhelming barrage to potentially clear some ground units.
Yeah, a little cherry on top of the overwhelming barrage. Why not?
Overwhelming barrage is the card that I'm most excited about having rotate out, as I think it is not a great card for the game overall. I don't think it's like,
Yeah,
oh, it must be banned. I don't think it's like I think arguably it should be banned in limited, but I don't think it's like should be banned in constructed necessarily. But I do think it came in a little too hot there.
yeah. When rotation hits, losing Spark of Rebellion is definitely going to change the game drastically, I
Yeah,
think, moving forward. So very excited.
I
But we
mean,
still are many months away from that.
yeah. I mean, it's gonna be. I mean, it's essentially gonna be another year. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think the first year will rotate out once set 7 releases, which should be in about a year from now. So we'll see
Mhm.
what happens then. And in this game,
All
Chris is
right.
going to lead us off with a crafty smuggler.
Yep.
Craw had no turn 1 play, but kills the smuggler with Power of the Dark Side.
Yep. Control decks. Obviously, you'd love that Pershing, but typically claiming is
He sees Pershing
common,
now,
I'd
but it
say.
might be a little
Yeah.
late.
Yeah. It's awkward on the 4 resource turn. That's for sure.
Elite P-38 Starfighter on the field here for Chris, but because Craw didn't deploy any units onto the board, the when play
A pricey removal. I think a laser in his hand from jump.
Yeah, turbo to some degree, turbo laser salvo is barrage at home. It does have some relevant effects. Is this a Corvus that I see?
I think it is. Uh,
Yeah, I believe that is the prestige copy of Corvus. Corvus is a 4/5 with Restore 2, and it has this ability that allows it to move a pilot into itself when you play it. At least in my experience, that ability is almost never used, and in Piet you're new for 4, which is a pretty good deal.
Yeah, that's a great stat line, but yeah, unlikely to pick up a pilot in this matchup, but that restore is going to be something that this Jenga player does not want to stick
Yeah.
around. So I would assume it's going to get Tarkin town as quickly as
Yeah,
possible here, but
I think this Corvus is probably not going to get a single restore with this triple dark raid from Chris hitting a ruthless raider. I
yeah.
suspect we're going to see Tarkentown clearing Corvus and a bunch of damage pushed to base.
Yep, that's 9. No, is that
But he didn't use
7?
it.
9 to base. Oh, he left it
He
alone.
neglected to use
Interesting.
Tarkentown. I do think that's a bit of a gaffe.
Yeah, a little bit
Croc,
greedy here. We'll see how that plays out for
yeah,
him.
maybe he's saving it to try to deal with one of those Sentinels, but Craw in this situation could potentially attack into the Elite P-38, kill it, heal 2, and because it was a trade, the Elite P-38s, when defeated, would be wasted.
Yeah, exactly. That's maybe just didn't think about that fully through here, but we'll see if that turns it around. That 2 HP is gonna be clutch here.
Yeah, and I mean,
Exactly
yeah,
as you
and he
said.
is
Here we
killing the
go.
unit, so it's really a swing of 5 HP, assuming that unit would have been able to get through otherwise.
Yeah, good shout there as well.
Looks like the players are
Sometimes when
pointing to
you
Tarkentown. Maybe Chris realizes that he forgot there. Not sure.
Yep. I've been there where sometimes that first game feels like it's still happening and you've used your base last game. It's a new game though. Gotta remember these things.
Both leaders now flipping onto the board, Django and Piet, facing off in the ground arena.
Yep. P38 comes back and exhausts Piet, but the interdictor hits the board because it's a discount of 2 now.
Yep. So the way that Piet's ability works is on his leader side, he can exhaust to discount a capital ship by 1. But when he's deployed as a leader unit, he passively discounts your capital ships by 2. So this fleet interdictor costs 7, but because Piet was able to flip and stay on the board, he was then able to bring it out for only 5, which is kind of a very, very crucial line in this matchup in particular.
Yeah, I also think it's interesting here that Django went into the base instead of softening up that Piet even more. So definitely playing the aggressor here and saying, you know what, I can handle your 8 cost capital ship that could come out here. So we'll see.
I think I did see an overwhelming barrage in hand there for Craw. He could potentially use that to clear Django off the board. Looks like the
Oh,
fleet interdictor is going to fire on the base itself, swinging in for 6 damage.
yep. Get it in before it gets exhausted. It's kind of the the name of the game against Django sometimes.
Another triple dark raid goes off. Let's see what Chris can find here. Now, you were mentioning earlier Django decks may be playing more on the ground to try to improve this matchup. One problem with doing that is that most ground units are not vehicles. And triple dark raid, which only finds vehicles, is a crucial card for Django. But there's a ground vehicle, the new War Juggernaut.
Yep. That's the big boogeyman of the set, I think, for sure right now.
War Juggernaut is as you say probably the strongest set 4 card for Django. It is a vehicle even though it's on the ground. When played it can deal 1 damage to any number of units and it gets +1 power for each damaged unit on the field. So here we're actually seeing Chris use the ability to damage his own side in order to increase the Juggernaut's stats. But now the overwhelming barrage from Cry is going off, and it does have enough power to clear that Juggernaut. And to make matters worse, because Chris damaged his own board to pump the Juggernaut, the barrage is also able, I believe, to clear the Elite P38 and maybe even have an extra point of damage on Django.
Yeah, that was a massive overwhelming barrage. A little bit like we were saying, a little bit greedy there of Chris earlier, with the Tarkin Town still being active, and it's just kind of sitting there, unused, unable to do anything. But yeah, that card, Overwhelming Barrage, it's a game changer.
That it is Pasquale. Overwhelming barrage hitting hard. All right, and now here we are with Chris. Chris's hopes for the turn were dashed a bit, I think, but he does manage to at least get 3 points of damage in with Django, and he brings out a crafty smuggler who,
Yep.
thanks to shielded, is actually quite resilient to overwhelming barrage and turbo laser salvo. Shielded units are very good against damage-based removal.
Yep, and with Django on the play, that Interdictor probably won't get another attack on the base this round, but we'll have to see what he drew into if he can damage it with a unit here.
Although, wait, I think it's
Oh,
I think
okay.
it's Craw who has the oh, you know what happened? After the barrage, because Chris played that crafty smuggler, Craw was able to get the initiative. I
Yeah,
think that's what happened there.
yeah, that must have been
Okay, so Chris brings out
interesting.
a Ruthless Raider, dealing 2 damage to the Interdictor and exhausting it. And this now means that he may finally get a chance to profit from that Tarkin Town. Oh, but no
Oh,
mercy only results. So this
yep.
card, 5 cost Vigilance Villainy, you can take control of a unit and then defeat it. And so because Craw takes control of the Ruthless Raider, he gets to use the when defeated effect, not Chris. So Craw uses the when defeated effect to deal 2 damage to kill the crafty smuggler and do 2 damage to Chris's base.
He must have read that coming because I thought that the leading with Piet was definitely a strange first action if you did have initiative. So good on him for having the foresight there to pop the shield to get a big wipe here with that no glory only results there.
Yeah, now Chris does manage to clear out that fleet interdictor via Tarkentown without it ever getting value from its when defeated ability. And Django continues hitting the base. Now, Django could have killed Piet here, but Chris is focused on the base and there's only 12 HP left for Craw.
Yep, yep. He's saying I can handle it basically, which is bold, I think, because we're
Yeah.
we're we're at the Devastator turn, I believe, here after a
Yeah, so a
resource.
Devastator could come out, not only set up a big Sentinel in space, but it can also just kill Django in one hit with its one plate effect if Craw has that Spark of Rebellion Devastator. Oh, wait, no, or is he off by 1? I think he only has no, he has 8 resources,
Yeah,
so
it's
with Piet
it's
discount
8
of 2, he
resources.
is in position. Let's see what happens next here.
I do see it in his hand. The little hyperspace version gave it away. We'll see if he chooses to go that route.
It certainly looks like a strong play to me, and I
Yep,
think
there it
that's what he's
is.
doing. Devastator discounted by 2, does 8 damage to Django when played, since Kra has 8 resources, and it's also a 10/10 Sentinel with Overwhelm in the Space Arena. This is not looking great for Chris, but maybe he can put together a ground assault that will be able to get that last damage through before the big ships take over the game.
Oh, P38 is not really ideal in this situation.
It pings Piet, but it does not exhaust him because Django was defeated and exhausted. Piet swings in for 2 to the base, and a Zygerian Starhopper also does not look like it is really what Chris needs here.
No, definitely not. And playing those 2 units means that Devastator gets first action into this round, potentially putting that Django player at 5 HP with 1 swing.
Yeah, he could. Kra could also attack into one of Chris's units, defeat it, and do major damage to the base via Overwhelm. Which would be somewhat safer if there's like a waylay or something. Although if Chris did waylay the Devastator, Kra could potentially just replay it unless Chris also found a way to clear Piet. Now, I do think Chris has his own Devastator in hand there, the jump to lightspeed version with the indirect damage where you control the targets. So Kra probably does want to try and close this game fast if he can.
Yeah, right to base. Yep, looks like 10 into the base.
10 to the base. Only 5 HP left for Chris. Kra now actually ahead on damage, ahead on board. Can Chris pull something out here to save the game?
Devastator.
There we go. It is the Devastator, jump to lightspeed Devastator here, which I believe inflicts 4 indirect damage, and you get to choose where it goes. So Chris uses 2 of that damage to clear Piet. And is the rest going on Devastator here?
Depends on his hand, but I think you might want to soften it up. Yeah, there you go.
Well, so
Okay.
here's the thing. He has to kill Devastator this turn or he loses because Kra can just take the initiative and Chris is tapped out now.
Yeah.
So, but does he have enough damage? He only has 6 damage. I don't think he can do it. I think Kra can just take the initiative and win.
Yeah. Yeah. As long obviously as long as the Zagirian indirect goes to base, where this should wrap it up here.
I think Chris might have had to put all of the indirect damage onto that Devastator. If he
Yeah,
had
that
put 4 indirect onto the Devastator, he could have swung into it with the other two or with the other 2 ships and cleared it.
yep.
He would take 2 damage to his base from Piet, but he would still be alive. This way, I think Kra gets to take the initiative and win, but it's possible he doesn't see that, or he's worried about some other factor, or there's a misplay, and we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, it looks like he's tempted. I mean, it's so tempting when you have so many resources just to play a
Yeah.
card, but you don't need to do that here.
No, he
Okay,
had
or just do that.
harsh, harsh. Turbo laser salvo does damage equal to your unit's power to the entire arena. It has to be a space unit, but you can fire it at either ground or space, and it only hits the other player's side. So Kra fires a turbo laser salvo, which does 10 damage to all of Chris's board here, and is gonna wipe the board completely. And I do think he could have just taken 1, but that is a pro to Chris.
Against move, it feels like, but
But here's the thing: what if Chris draws like a waylay or some other thing that's gonna allow him to stay
for
alive?
sure,
It
yeah,
could
this
happen.
prolongs the game instead of just ending it with a swing, but it is still a tough position to
Yeah, I
come
mean,
back from.
he could even draw an elite exhaust a Devastator, and
Yep.
I don't
Oh
know.
yeah. Yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
definitely it feels a little unnecessary for sure, obviously, but he chose to do it. So
Yeah.
we'll see if the answers come through here for the Django player.
Certainly is a high impact play, in terms of stuff. What is
That's
that?
a guerrilla
Gre-
soldiers in the wrong arena, I believe.
I see.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah. So the gorilla soldier comes out. Kra presumably says, "Take the damage on my base. Swing with
Yep.
Devastator. Game over." Okay. It's possible Chris was hoping that Kra would misplay it there and put the indirect damage on the Devastator. Oh, okay. Zuhair has the answer. Because Chris had that Devastator, he could have put the indirect damage when defeated from the Zagirian Starhopper onto the Devastator to clear it. So Chris did have a way to clear that Devastator with the remaining 2 units because he could have swung into it with the Star Hopper for 5 total, and then the other one would be 3. So he would have been able to clear the Devastator if that bombardment hadn't wiped things out. That's a great point.
Yes. Yep.
So
Because the
we
Devastator
had
says
that
he
wrong,
assigns
and
all
chat had
indirect.
it
Yep.
right. Thank you, Zuhair Galaxy, for pointing that one out. Craw did have to deal with some of that board he couldn't have just claimed because the ability of the jump to lightspeed Devastator to assign indirect damage made that Zagarian Starhopper much more dangerous.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's not it obviously most of the time it's only the Devastator that gets to assign it, because it's coming in and then typically is handled or you win the game off of it. But it does state all indirect damage you get to assign. So that is a good shout from chat there.
Yeah, so there was some discussion of how did the final Han versus Han match go in the 3v3. Well, I'll explain it. In the final Han versus Han match, unfortunately went to time. Um, they timed out during game 2, but the KTOD player had won game 1, so he won at time. KTOD got the win, but because it's double elim, there's going to be a like ultimate finals between KTOD and McClunky tomorrow. And I do think finals should probably be untimed, but you know, it is what it is. All right. New game, 1-1. Let's
All
see how we
right.
do.
Bazine coming down, revealing Child Sin, no glory, only results a Pike Sentinel and an was that Onyx Brute? Is that what that is? Or what's that? Onyx what new card is that?
Onyx Squadron Brute. That's right.
Yeah, Onyx Squadron Brute, yeah. That's also a very nice card here in this matchup. All right, so
Oh, okay. And someone points out that the Zagarian Starhopper is actually 2+2 directed indirect, and the Elite P38 is 3+1. So yeah, he had exact Cs, but he was not able to execute it thanks to that timely turbo laser salvo from Craw.
yep,
And Childson was removed
yep.
by that Bazine, and we saw Pike Sentinel hit the field for Craw to block up.
Oh, we did hit the ramp on our next round of draws here. So Bazine not able to stop the resupply from coming in.
Yep. An
And the
elite
P38
P38
here.
Starfighter from Chris does ping the Pike Sentinel, and it looks here like he is not going to use Tarkentown. He's going to have Bazine swing into it, maybe going to try and trade Bazine for the Pike Sentinel here.
Yeah, but that does mean he loses initiative and probably is going to take 2 damage to the base before that gets removed. So we'll see if that's costly.
Yeah, I think the situation, I think for Chris, I think he's thinking, I'm the aggro. I don't really care about damage to my base. Yeah, this Pike Sentinel gets to live, but like I need it off the field. And because Piet's endgame is so space focused, having Bazine on the field to potentially exhaust ground units, which can normally be quite good for Django, is going to be a lot less relevant here than in some other matchups.
Yep, that could definitely be a thought process here. And he's what Kraw's actually overwhelming barrage, really making him pay for leaving that on board.
Oh, harsh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that Pike Sentinel sticking around got a lot more damage out there than expected, maybe.
Yeah, it won't get an attack. Presumably he gets exhausted unless Chris just missed that trigger. The
He
damage went on for
It
P38,
doesn't
but
look
the
like he
exhaust
used it.
did not.
He has another P38.
All right.
Does he use it this time? Is he saving it for something? Does he want to use it on Pied for some reason? I don't totally understand
Uh,
this, but no, he uses it that time. Okay.
wow. No, he didn't. He took 4 to
No.
base.
Why is he saving it?
And Crow
Crowd
just pointed
points to
out question.
Django.
Yeah. Oh no.
Yeah, he had multiple instances of damage from a unit that could have been used to exhaust that pike, but didn't take it.
Yeah, I guess in his
I
mind he's
wonder
just
if he
like
has
it's
the
dead
play to
anyway.
exhaust Piet here, and he thinks that's more valuable. Doesn't look like it.
No. Yeah.
Huh.
No, he basically tapped out. He would need an ISB agent, I guess, but yeah, it doesn't have it.
Yeah,
So
I think a bit of an error there is Chris could have prevented 4 damage to his base if he had remembered to use Django's ability on that Pike Sentinel from either of those Elite P38 triggers.
yeah, and definitely, obviously, like we mentioned, he actually gets in a bunch of damage if he just Tarkentans the Pike Sentinel. So a
Yes.
little bit of an interesting uh course of events here for Chris. We'll see
Yeah,
if he
it's
can
funny too
recover.
because normally an overwhelming barrage on a unit with 2 power is not the hypest thing in the world, but in that game state,
No.
it actually ended up being quite strong.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and
Uh,
that's another interesting point is a lot of people stay, I would say, a little greedy with their overwhelming barrage, but Craw fired that off the moment he saw an opportunity.
yeah. Now I wanna give a shout out here to, Saget TBR. My apologies if I mispronounced that, who has subscribed for 3 months to the channel here with Amazon Prime. Thank you for supporting McClunky Gaming.
Yeah, welcome back, 3-monther here.
And, Platform 327 says, "Tower, nice to hear those pipes." Yeah, Platform, good to see you in the chat. How you doing?
Ah,
Now, in the
pre
game now what is that?
prepare for
Why is
takeoff. Prepare for takeoff was played, so
Ah,
he's searching for 2 vehicles, and he's getting a Devastator from Spark Rebellion and another Onyx. Oh, no, he's choosing the Fleet Interdictor instead. So
that does
2
seem like a
big
better
capital
choice compared to
ships.
the Onyx Squadron Brute, which is a much earlier game unit.
Yeah, it's I'm loving the fact that Piet are running that search card in multiples, typically about 2 or 3. Sometimes, instead of playing a turn 1 play, you just search for some vehicles you know you're gonna get out in a speedy time anyway. So love seeing
Yeah,
that
and
set
it's
1
also a
card come
card
back.
that it's also a card that can be very effective with Lieutenant Childson if you use it to just find some blue ships and, increase your hand size.
Mhm. For sure. All right, Django's assembled a bit of a space fleet here, but Devastator can come out, and Django is down already.
And this is the brutality and, like, raw caveman strength of the Piet blue deck. He's playing Devastator, a unit that costs 10, while his opponent is only on 6 resources, and this is not even that rare.
Yeah, it's definitely a struggle right now for this Django player after a couple of early misplays, and now this Devastator hitting the board super early. We're
Yeah.
not even seeing him hit waylays. I'm not sure if he's running them, but he's not able to bounce these big threats either to get some damage in. Um, this third game is definitely looking rough for Django.
Now, Chris does bring out a War Juggernaut, and he's going to spread damage around the board, damaging not only Kraw's units, but also his own units to put more stats on that War Juggernaut. Now, it gets +1 power for every damaged unit on the field. So right now, it actually has +5. Craw takes a swing with Piet into the base for 2, but that does mean Chris is going to be able to get the initiative here. Let's see what he does with it.
Yeah,
I do think
he
it might have
doesn't.
been good for Craw to take the initiative there, but I don't know for sure. We'll have to see how this develops. It would
Yeah, it's
give him an
oftentimes
opportunity to
these
potentially
these
stop that Juggernaut.
Yeah, and these small little chip damages when you have these big units are largely irrelevant a lot of the time. So we'll see if he pays for it here.
And
A
even if he
triple dark
couldn't
raid.
stop the Juggernaut, he could have just swung his Devastator into one of those units, cleared it, and done a bunch of damage with Overwhelm, which itself would have been quite
Exactly.
valuable.
Yeah, and now there's a high chance it doesn't even get to attack. So
Yeah,
you
we'll
traded,
see if
you kind of lost 8 damage here.
Yeah, now Chris needs to find a unit that pings, and he finds another
Oof.
Juggernaut. This is huge.
Wow.
That is a big, big play. A
Yeah.
second War Juggernaut on the field. That's going to allow an exhaust.
Oh no.
Oh, oh, what a play. So the War Juggernaut gets exhausted, but then fires off that turbo laser salvo for 10 damage to or to both Juggernauts. Or sorry, the War Juggernaut exhausts Devastator, and then it's the turbo laser salvo again. Man,
Yeah, that's rough. That was gonna basically swing the game, I'd say, in Django's favor if those both got to attack, but instead they are hitting the discard pile.
yeah, I was joking earlier about Turbo Laser Salvo being overwhelming barrage at home, but Turbo Laser Salvo is actually much more effective than overwhelming barrage in a situation where the opponent has multiple high HP units. There's that waylay though
Yep,
from Chris.
finally found the waylay. Top target comes down on the IG-88. Inevitable heal of 6 coming through eventually.
I have a feeling that Kraw's game plan here is going to be to replay that Devastator, use the win play to clear IG-88, and get a nice big heal.
Yep, that's likely on the cards for next turn, but taking some damage
Waylay is a
now.
good way to set back these Piet decks, but with Piet still on the field providing that discount, the situation is not at all stable for Chris since Croc can just replay that Devastator.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Meebles
definitely an
in
uphill
chat
battle.
says, "Tower, my man, sending love from the Macon opening crew. Yeah, good to see you, and good to be casting here again. Joined here by Pasquale, a very strong player.
Well, thanks. I do my best at these events, but excited to be casting on the other end. Way less stressful.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I think there are parts of both that I like. You know what I mean?
For
There's
sure.
different ways to experience the game, and I like both of them.
Yeah, and this being the first big event of Jump to Lightspeed, it's actually nice to kind of have a front row seat and get to see what players are cooking up here, instead of having to experience it across the table. So it's kind
Yeah.
of a nice little cheat code here, getting as we get ready for our first sector qualifier in Denver.
Oh yeah. Are you going to be playing there, Pasquale?
I will be headed to Denver next weekend.
I believe I'll be playing there as well. I've been,
Nice.
cooking up some decks or whatever, thinking about what to play, and I believe I'm gonna be there. I believe I'm gonna be there playing. So we'll see how it goes. Ooh,
Okay, so we did see that Devastator taking out the IG healing 6, and then a response of Devastator to take out Piet comes down from Django. So one of each Devastator on the board here.
yep. But Kra takes the initiative, and his Devastator can potentially destroy the opposing Devastator
Yeah,
here.
but leave it at 1, so it's
Yeah,
not the worst
it would
trade.
then be able to be cleared relatively easily.
Yeah.
In fact, Tarkentown hasn't been used yet, so we could see that.
Yeah, now you have to ask yourself, do you put the Django player at 5 HP with a swing to base instead?
Yeah, I mean, you absolutely could. Now, the Piet decks have essentially nothing. Piet Red is different, but Piet Blue doesn't have any real like reach direct damage to base type cards. Unless you can use no glory only results on opposing cards that have relevant when defeated effects, like K2 or Ruthless Raider. So I'm not sure. No, but he's going for
Ooh,
it.
he seems like he's questioning himself, but the initial, yeah, he goes right to
He does
base,
it.
10 damage.
5 HP left for Chris. Does Chris have like the orbital bombardment or whatever to throw out a huge amount of damage here and take out Devastator and put himself
I
in a
think
good
maybe he's
spot?
banking on it taking 2 actions to kill this Devastator, so maybe he gets an overwhelming barrage or another something off instead. But we see a surprise strike for 2 action. No, he's gonna take the 2 actions and see if he pays
It's the
for it.
direct crash Devastator against Devastator, and now Kra is cooking up something big.
Okay,
Exhausts Piet and spends 8
9. Yeah,
is it
or
going to be the
9 with the Piet
Avenger?
ability. Yeah, 9 with the Piet ability. He's looking to play.
Oh no, he's rethinking it. What is he doing here?
It's a big moment for him, but we'll see. I did see. Can't
Now
remember
this
even.
is where the Piet deck wants to be in the late game, throwing down big capital ships. Um, and Kra also has a lead on HP, but I wouldn't count Chris out just yet. Django can be very explosive with the right situation.
Yeah, and it's always tough when you kind of have to get so close to tapping out. You play one big thing, and your opponent still has all these cards in their hand. So it is scary to do it, but we'll see if the Avenger hits the board. That's what it was looking like. Oh, it's Malevolence
Ooh,
instead.
Malevolence. Okay.
So he's going to blank the P38 from attacking.
Yeah, Malevolence played with no exploit, and its on attack ability is going to give that P38 -4 and prevent it from attacking this round.
Daring Raid
Daring
comes out to.
Raid, I'm surprised that was used instead of Tarkentown, but okay. Initiative taken. Does Chris have anything to stop that Malevolence? He does not. He's scooping it up. Kra is going to get the win.
Really well played from Kra there, reading those situations very, very well, especially with that no glory on that Ruthless Raider, but pinging that Piet attack. But he read a lot of these situations very, very well.
Yeah, they said that They said that Piet Blue was a potential counter to Django Red, and Piet Blue was indeed able to get the win despite losing that first round. Craw came back, got the 2-1 victory here in the second round of Swiss at the 6K event.
Yeah, it's always tough when you lose that first game as a deck that should be favored, and then your opponent, potentially has some spicy side deck cards, but wasn't enough for Django to close it out here. We see, I think, quickly before the stream switched back, unsided Cham Sandula, which is a very strong card out of
Yeah.
Jump to Lightspeed.
Cham Syndulla, that's one that I've had as a I think it's a very relevant card for Sabine decks as well, as it is a potential counter to opponents who ramp and a potential counter to Han as well.
Yeah, I'm maining it in a lot of decks. I think that stat line being so aggressive, as well as a very powerful effect in so many situations. Uh, it's I think it's an all-star pick that we're going to see sliding into a lot more main decks as the format
I
progresses.
could see it. I could honestly see it. I've thought about putting it in main deck myself.
Yeah, it's a
Depends
cool
a lot
card.
on what meta you expect, of course. If it's all Django all the time, then it's not the most relevant card ever, but it's not exactly garbage there either. The stats themselves are quite
Yeah,
good. And you can potentially get value out of that ability even if the opponent isn't ramping by not resourcing in a situation where you otherwise would and then playing Cham to make up for it. And that's like kind of like a +1 card advantage.
yeah, and it's a very scary stat line. Like I'm saying, so very easily kills a lot of these seven. Quinlan, for instance, has to deal with it before he deploys. Otherwise, you're a surprise strike or a breaking in or a very simple pump away from losing your leader if you flip.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason why I'm kind of enjoying it in a lot of decks. It's a scary four cost play if you get it on curve.
Yeah, and for a Sabine player, there's an even scarier aspect to it, which is that Cham Syndulla is a rebel. He's not
Mm.
heroism, but he is a rebel. So things like the Fleet Lieutenant buff, that's another way to get to 7 to take down some leaders. You could also buff him with Wing Leader. Rebel Assault works with him. You can, if you're playing Metal Ceremony, that can give him a buff. There's some scary things there.
Yeah, it's this, our I think our only 5/4 for 4 in the game, and I think
There
it's being slept on a little bit. So
There is so Saw Gerrera is a
that's
5/4
true.
for 4, but he
Single,
is
I should
double
say
red,
single
so most
aspect.
decks
Yeah.
can't really play him.
Yeah. Saw. You're right. That's the as a red Sabine player, you're familiar with Saga. Most people kind of gloss
Yeah.
over him.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like, Saw is not the greatest. I think Cham's ability is significantly better than Saw's, although Saw was at one time pretty strong. Like, I definitely made a lot of use of him in the
Yeah,
Spark
for
of
sure.
Rebellion meta.
All right. Well, that
Alright,
was
well, we
definitely
have about
nice to see
2 and a half
Django lost.
minutes before time is called. What was that about Django?
No, I was just saying. I think chat might be excited to see a Django loss on stream after the 3v3 event.
All right, I'm gonna get a little spicy here, boys. So I personally think, I could be wrong. I personally think there is a decent chance that we will see Django once again being overrated. I know everyone's talking about him. I know people say he's the deck to beat, but people were saying that before the set 3 PQ season as well. And it ended up with Han performing significantly better and Sabine, I think, also maybe having more wins than Django. And it wasn't that Django's terrible. I'm not saying he's terrible, but I'm not sure that he's some ultimate deck. It does seem like there are some counters.
Yeah, and I think heading into this Jump to Lightspeed set, it's pretty clear that Django got a lot of the best tools.
Oh, no
So,
doubt.
I think it's very easy to prepare for something like this because what it received. And other decks, it's like maybe a card here or there. So therefore, like the decks are kind of refined as is. Where Django, I think, has a lot of room to be fine tuned because there's so many good cards in Jump to Lightspeed for the leader.
I will say, if you're playing, like, if we were just talking about Han and Sabine. So, like, double yellow Han, I don't think he gained as much as Django, but I don't think he gained nothing. You know what I mean? Like, you have things like Pilot Han, the unit. We've seen people playing the stolen cargo hauler
Mm-hmm.
or AT hauler or whatever to get some huge stats on the board early. We've seen, I think potentially Mandalorian pilot is a pretty reasonable option for double yellow Han as well.
Yeah, there's been
Um,
mostly. I mean, obviously, people are very high on Commandeer as like the must play for Han. But I think you're right. I think there's potentially a little bit of a missed opportunity in the space for these double yellow Han Cunning decks because a lot of them are seemingly just running the first Falcon or maybe one or two other cards. But like you said, that the Mandalorian pilot's very aggressively statted, but also has that double exhaust trigger. I think there's some interesting ways you could actually build a deck that aren't just set three Han with Commandeers in the main deck and maybe some Ahsoka.
yeah. And Commandeer, I also think is like under normal circumstances not a main deck card. I think one of the reasons people are running it is because the situation with Django, like everybody's saying Django's going to be the best. If it turned out that Django were overrated, I'm not sure we would be seeing main deck Commandeers.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's obviously very similar to Traitorous, which we didn't see too much in the main deck, but was a good side deck option. Commandeer being a little bit more flexible because it can grab a little bit more expensive units, but also still in that same like, oh, this is fine sometimes, pretty bad others, but just hard counters that aggressive triple dark raid play. So
Yeah.
it feels like a must run.
And the I think that, if we look at the Sabine ECL build, which was, an also a very successful deck competitively. Um, I think that deck actually also got a fair few things. You have things like Pilot Luke, Pilot Chewie, Phoenix Squadron A-Wing, the one that's just a 3/2. Blue Leader is, in my opinion, quite good. Sabine's Masterpiece is really good with ECL. Um, they can run Cham as well. There's definitely it wasn't just Django that profited from the new set, in my view.
Yeah, for sure. And I think leaning into specifically like that pilot Chewbacca maybe lane for Sabine very strong. Where I've heard rumblings of Leia being very viable again because of all these very powerful rebels. So we'll see if there's any Leia at this event. Excited to see if set one Leia can make a comeback.
Yeah, I thought that was a really interesting sort of narrative, much of which unfolded even before the game actually came out, where there was sort of this rivalry between Leia and Sabine as to which deck would ultimately be able to execute the like aggro rebels package more efficiently. And to me at least, I think that the big thing that allowed Sabine to win the throne there was when Rebel Assault was revealed. It was one of the later cards to be revealed by FFG, and it allowed a Sabine deck to kind of import the main advantage that Leia had access to. Um, but Leia is not like a fundamentally bad leader. Like Leia can be really powerful in the right situation, and especially if you can get some units that are buffed up, which seems very possible with the new pilots and stuff. Her ability can be very, very strong.
Yeah, I think she's very one of the few leaders from the first set that are worth a second look. Because also, Tarkin Town was a popular base when she was being run, but you also just have the ability to run 30 HP, which can actually turn the tide pretty quickly against Sabine, having that 5 extra HP while being just as aggressive with some of these new pilots. Very interesting, I think, to see as we get into these kind of bigger official events from FFG. If anyone cooks up anything spicy with some of these older leaders that got some love.
Yeah, I think there's really an interesting element to a new set coming out because not only do you have a whole bunch of new leaders to explore, but like you said, there's also this aspect of let's take a second look at some of these past leaders and think about how can we update them with some of the new cards. And I've definitely seen it happening. I've seen, I think Captain Rex got like wildly better. I don't know that it's actually a competitive deck that people should play in a tournament, but the Rex Unity of Purpose combo deck is like far better than
Yeah, I
past
did
Rex
see you
decks
put out
were.
a video on that, which was very entertaining. It has made a splash in my local scene here in New York City. It's a very interesting combo of that, sometimes
Yeah.
just automatically wins on the spot, and that's
Y-
really fun for the game because it hasn't had anything
Yeah.
like
Now
that
I
before.
want to say I don't think that is a deck that I would personally want to take to a big tournament. I think there are a lot of answers to it. Um, but it is a deck that I think will like basically like jump up and down on people who don't know what it's gonna do. and who are running, especially people who are running like more mid-rangey builds where they don't really have a fast game plan, and they can't really lock you down, and you get to this point where it's just like, oh, I have like 30 points of stats on the board for some reason.
Yeah, I do think that had it not been kind of discussed this quickly, it could have made a huge splash at Denver, because it really can catch you off guard with how much power it puts out. It's really good into these Piet decks, and other kind of play one thing a turn decks. But it's on the radar. We'll see if people take it seriously, and we'll see if anyone's brave enough to actually bring it and kind of dare people to side deck for it and have answers for it in the main deck, because it definitely can check some leaders and new decks right away.
Yeah, I would love to see the Unity of Purpose combo on stream, but we'll have to see how things unfold. Um, there are some other older leaders. I know that I think that Count Dooku was recognized in set 3 as being very powerful in theory, but not having a great separatist card pool. And there have definitely been some good separatist options added. Not sure if it's enough to make him like actually really strong, but he's one that I think will be getting a second look a fair few times.
Yeah, Dooku, the new invisible hand's very powerful. We have Mandalorian, from the starter decks in set 2, with the new Razor Crest, and obviously pilots being
Oh
so
yeah.
flexible. You don't have to put all these upgrades into your deck now.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think we also I feel like actually this set gave us a leader that we're going to be looking back on in future sets. So I think Captain Phasma, I don't think she's good right now, but I think her card is good. I just think the first order card pool is not good. I could easily see a world where, we're looking back in like set 7 or set 8 and Captain Phasma all of a sudden has a deep first order roster and is causing some major problems for people.
Yeah, and the unit as well is very powerful though.
Oh yeah.
The 5 cost with ECL giving +4/+4, swinging for 5. Yeah, there's something there once we get a handful more options for sure. That's a good shout as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting game. There's a lot of options and there's a huge variety of characters. Now, I'm not saying every character is going to necessarily get a second look and come back really strong. I don't anticipate Jin Urso suddenly destroying the competitive scene. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're not a believer in Finn, is what you're saying to
But
me.
yeah, look, Jin was a monster in set 1
For
limited
sure.
play. And she had at least some time in the sun, you know what I mean? Void of results. But gonna be a huge competitive star. Like you said, I don't think Finn is gonna be a huge competitive star.
Yeah. That happens when, they mentioned on channels that these leaders kind of had to be adjusted where they landed, so they were a
mm,
little too strong, unable to find the perfect lane for them, and it's format, but or it's better that than what kind of
yeah,
happened with Mark Rebellion.
had said something on Twitter or similar about or maybe it was one of their interviews or streams with
Mm.
and super laser technician, especially because plays a super laser technician became very reliable pretty fast and ultimately was too good. I don't know, maybe I wish a little more while they were doing Inquisitor is just like oppressively strong and fast, and that deck could be really frustrating to deal with if it were really good.
Yeah, 100. Same with Rose, the Tico from Jump to Lightspeed. I think needing to attack clause for the vehicle, and it ended up being strong, probably in limited especially, but they felt too strong overall, so they had to slap that clause on there. It's an Etsy showcase, I think. I don't know who. Is that Sabine? It looks like a female presenting character, but I do not know who that is. So it's Sabine ECL on one side, and I do not know. That's got to be Sabine Yellow, right? Who the heck? What? What in? Sabine Yellow. Okay. The leader unit side of that custom Sabine is just cracked me up with the pose. What is that? That's so funny. Okay, they've had to put it away. Sabine Yellow. Oh, it's Rebel Resource. Okay. I was like, who the heck's running Sabine Yellow? This makes sense. All right, we've got Sabine Yellow 30 HP against Sabine ECL. Rebel Resource taking on Steady here. Going to be interested to see what if we see any of those pilots we were mentioning earlier for Sabine, any Chewbacca, any Luke. And definitely Sabine Yell has some interesting tools as well. Is the audio breaking? I'm not sure. It could have been my laughing. We're chat. Good to know that the audio is potentially an issue. Oh, maybe it's just tower. Not sure. All right. Well, I will do my. No worries here. So players are deciding on resourcing. Seems like Steady has decided not to mulligan, and Rebel Resource also decided not to mulligan. So we are ready to go here. And yikes! Big oops for Rebel Resource, accidentally revealing that they have a squadron in their hand. All right, we have a ground arena battlefield marine beginning for Sabine ECL and a green squadron A wing. So both have successfully lane dodged here, and with the 5 HP advantage that you get from running this 30 HP cunning base, you're going to see Sabine use their leader ability, but only on Rebel Resource side to further increase, or I guess just to push the damage here. The advantage remains the same, being
yeah.
5 HP. Okay, you're back, I think.
Great. Sorry about that, guys. I accidentally messed with my microphone and became muted to y'all. But now I'm back. We're here. And yeah, just to be super clear for the viewers, you are not really allowed to use non-official cards, even if it's your leader. I think some people are lenient with that. As we can see, he did have the real leader available.
Yeah. Right, and we're seeing a fleet lieutenant come down, swinging in for 5 of that battlefield marine, and then quickly Rebel Resource drops 2 more space units, a cartel spacer and another green squadron A wing.
Now,
we'll be interested to see what happens
I
here.
myself have played. I have played Cunning Sabine quite a bit. And it has some different strengths and weaknesses compared to Sabine ECL. So one of the things that Cunning Sabine is good at is playing multiple small units because you have some efficient, very cheap options like this Cartel Turncoat from Rebel Resource. You also
Yep.
have things like Leia Organa Defiant Princess, who can be played essentially as a 1-cost 2/2 or used for that exhaust So the yellow Sabine build is more able to like create a wide board, and it also has some nice explosive tricks with things like surprise strike or sneak attack. Um, it doesn't have some of the really effective like later game plays that Sabine ECL has though. So no Poe and Wrecker off of ECL, no timely intervention. They're very different decks, but I do think yellow is real.
Yeah, 100%. And I think in this situation, being able to drop multiple units is going to give Rebel Resource the action economy to kind of force out that Sabine flip. And we did see the Leia Defiant Princess you had mentioned in their hand. So I would assume that Sabine gets exhausted, but he's
Yeah,
choosing to attack
maybe
instead.
waiting to see if Steady is gonna try and like upgrade Sabine with a wing leader or even a dark saber or something here, and then
Yeah,
potentially intervene after that, like getting your opponent to waste more resources. And we do see a wing leader in hand, but it's not clear if Steady's gonna go for it.
yeah.
Rebel
But again, the
resource seems
action economy is important here because that extra attack means now you have to decide what are you doing with your resources.
Yeah, sometimes having more units swinging than your opponent is an advantage, because it allows you to get a better sense of what they're doing and kind of stall things out a bit. But sometimes it's a disadvantage if you have to put damage on really fast. So, ooh, and that is the Valiant Assault
That
ship, I
is, and
believe.
that's going to create a very
So,
interesting dynamic of resourcing next turn.
yeah, absolutely. So the Valiant Assault ship is it's a card that gets more strength if your opponent has more resources than you. So when it attacks, it can be very powerful. So I believe I believe it's a 3/4
Yep.
saboteur. And on attack, if the defending player controls more resources than you, the unit gets +2 power for this attack. And it is not a rebel, but it is heroism in terms of what synergies it works with. So rebel resource could potentially not resource can, assuming Steady does resource, of course, it creates a very interesting dynamic. There aren't that many cards that care about things like this.
Yeah, and playing in, like you said, it mentioned yellow, you have a lot of cheaper things. So you don't mind sitting at 4, but Sabine really wants to hit 5 for that ECL Poe. Um so and he
Ooh. So
oh, bamboozle Sabine to just get rid of those experience tokens.
yeah, so I am not so I think what happened is, yeah, Steady brought out his wing leader, buffed his Sabine, and then Rebel Resource discarded Leia to bamboozle for free. Now, I do think I'm not 100% sure, but it may have been that that would have been more effective if Rebel Resource had claimed first and then done the bamboozle as the first action, because it then would have exhausted the Sabine as well as knocking those counters off. But then Steady would have been able to respond potentially with an ambush or something. Not entirely sure.
Yeah, and we did see that Sabine did go for 5 resources, Sabine ECL, but the Rebel Resource chose to stay at 4, keeping that +2 alive on that Valiant Assault ship, which is going to be really hard to deal with right now for Sabine
Yeah,
ECL.
now Rebel Resource has all kinds of lethal here. So he has 5 from the Valiant Assault ship only, plus 3 from either of the A-Wings or Sabine is lethal. Even if the Valiant Assault ship is killed, he has 11 damage on the board, which is also more than lethal. Steady is going to have to come up with something here. The
Yeah,
other
I
thing is that Rebel
believe.
Resource is
Yep.
on 30 HP.
Yep. Yeah, it's a big advantage here. And there's we would need to see some sort of a Rebel Assault to kind of get even close for the Sabine ECL player, but does not seem to have it in their hand.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, if he double Rebel Assaulted, would he win off that? He could do, but like, I don't think that's an option for him. Let's see what he can do.
He's thinking about a heroic sacrifice. I think that
Okay, Heroic
kills.
sacrificed his own Sabine into the base. Five, so
Uh,
that's going to do 5 total damage. Plus, it makes his Sabine available for pings. Plus, he draws a card. Valiant Assault Ship for 5, and now there's 3 units on Rebel Resources side that have lethal. I think Steady is done.
yep.
There's the scoop.
Yep. Yeah, I think he was debating on using heroic sacrifice on wing leader to clear the Valiant Assault ship, but it's still lethal with all the other attacks. He had no sentinels or no good ECL target to do anything with. So
Yeah,
that
Rebel
was
Resource moving much faster than Steady. Steady never used his ECL. Rebel Resource just pushed that damage through and got the win.
Yeah, that was I think it was a 7-minute game, I think. That's pretty fast. But that's the Sabine mirror for, well, pseudo mirror. But with these leaders, you know you're gonna get a quick round in.
Yeah, that's Sabine's secret bonus not listed on the card is that you get longer breaks in between all your rounds.
I've definitely had friends who have come to these events playing some sort of aggro deck, be it Sabine or Kylo or something. And the thought is, I win or I lose, and then I get to walk around instead of sitting at the table for 55 minutes and sweating it out.
Yeah.
So we'll see if there's any. Yeah, so far, we didn't see any jump to light speed cards from either player. So we'll see if we see any new spice in this Sabine Cunning deck, or even like we were mentioning earlier, some of these pilots get played at all.
It'll be pretty interesting to see how this goes, I feel.
Yeah, it's also sometimes I feel in these aggro mirrors initiatives very important, and we saw that Steady actually had the first action, and still ended up losing. So that bodes pretty well for Rebel Resource, I think. If there's a game 3, typically if you're on the play, you can just push. You know, you can win by that one action that often these games come down to. We have a subscription here from Sigmund Fred 7. Thank you so much for 2 months with McClunky Gaming using
Yeah.
Amazon Prime.
Big shout out to you. Thanks for supporting the channel. We are trying to bring you guys some high quality tournament coverage and commentary here at various events throughout the Star Wars Unlimited competitive season, and good to have that support.
Yep, and Tower, you and I are here all weekend together, I think,
I
right?
believe so.
All day tomorrow and Sunday. It's going to be a long weekend of intense Star Wars action. So
Lots of
hopefully you'll
SWU this
all be
weekend.
tuning in. Lots of SWU this weekend and next weekend. Jeez.
Yeah, this weekend we got the battle at BIATL, and next weekend we have the first U.S. major event with the Denver. Is it a Denver sector qualifier? Is that what it's called?
Yes, it is a sector qualifier in Denver, and then also tomorrow there is also. I don't know if anyone's streaming it or there will be coverage, but there is the first sector qualifier in Milan in Italy.
Yes, Milan,
So
Italy.
we will get a peek at what happens over there in Europe. Their meta's typically pretty different, honestly. It kind of shook out the similar towards the end. The US was very heavy on Quinlan before it picked up in Europe. So certain decks are more popular based on region for sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
McClunky has a teammate traveling to Milan. Who's
that's
heading
right.
over?
Yeah, we have Padawan Unlimited, who is on the McClunky Gaming team, is I believe over in Europe now, and is going to be playing in that event.
Shout out to
Hopefully, he
Padawan
will
Unlimited on YouTube
bring
as
back
well. I had the privilege size Planetary Qualifier last set. They're very nice, very talented. He was playing Obi-Wan ECL into my Anakin blue. I'll never forget the branded. He had branded everything, branded cards, sleeves, everything. I was like, oh, that's cool. Good for you. I like it. Very nice guy. All right, we are shuffling up here, deciding on mulligans. And looks like Rub Resource is choosing to mulligan away those 6 cards, hoping for something better. And also found an issue with a sleeve they are replacing. I definitely hope Padawan takes Obi-Wan to yeah, or even Luke. I feel like if you're playing Obi-Wan ECL, you could probably play Luke ECL, shoot for one of the first ever showcases in the world. If you were to probably, top 64 with Luke Skywalker from the Spark of Rebellion set, you would be given a showcase by Fantasy Flight Gaming. So that is going to be part of like a side quest at all these big FFG events that if you finish in the top 64 and you are the highest placing player of that particular leader, you will be given a free showcase. So this is the first time Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker will have showcases available from Spark of Rebellion. So hopefully Padawan is going over there repping the blue green hero package and playing some Luke this time. That would be very fun.
Yeah, and I believe those Luke and Vader showcases are maybe also gonna be like prize wall items. So
Yes.
you don't have to be the top Luke or Vader and top 64 to get them. But I do think that this prize policy is gonna create some interesting situations with respect to variety. I think there's definitely gonna be some people who will think, oh, I'm not sure if I can win the event, but I think, top 64, I can probably do that. And I bet I can be, the best player for my specific pet deck that I am really good on, even if it's not the best thing overall.
From a financial perspective, it is a thought that's crossing my mind over this next week. I will tell you that much.
Yeah.
Do I risk it for the biscuit and try and top 64 with Luke? That's definitely on my brain.
I
Okay,
do
we
think the
see.
price of those Luke and Vader showcases might be pretty high.
Oh
Don't know what
yeah,
it is yet, but wouldn't be shocked to see it be a big number.
for sure. All right, we got some action here. We got a brand new space unit played for Sabine CL. This is which is the Phoenix Squadron. Is this one the Phoenix Squadron? I think it's what it is. Phoenix Squadron A Wing played 3-2 in space for 2, and then responded to by Sabine ground unit being buffed by Wing Leader here.
Yeah, both players with buffs.
Yeah, and we
Is
did
that
see a pilot come down. I have no idea which one, but it is
I
probably a
can't
Luke or
tell if it's
Chewie.
Pilot Luke or if it's Pilot Chewie, but they
Yeah.
actually are kind of similar in this role, which
Yep.
which is they're both gonna
Uh,
it's Pilot
it's
Luke.
Luke. Nice. Wish
All right,
granted.
so
Wish granted here.
both players buffing up their playing an initial unit that is an aggressive choice and then buffing that initial unit. So strong start from both players here.
Yeah, it does obviously favor this extra 5 HP though, because they're kind of putting out the same amount of damage. And that's why I think you see Rebel Resource using the Sabine ping, and Steady is not, because he knows he's at a bit of a disadvantage here. 9 damage on Steady versus 11 on Sabine, but that Sabine unit has not swung yet.
Yeah, let's see. Is that a daring raid on Sabine?
Oof. Yeah, daring raid for kind of no value there.
I wonder if there's an ambush coming in.
Oh, but a surprise strike swings in for what's that?
I think it's 8 total because
8
it's
damage. Yeah.
yeah, 4 base plus 1 from the on attack, or 2 base plus 2 from experience plus 1 from on attack plus 3 from surprise strike. That's a hard hit.
Wow. We're seeing 17 presented already on Sabine ECL,
This is
and the
the thing.
leaders have not come out.
Sabine Yellow is very, very fast. Sabine Yellow is faster than Sabine ECL. Um,
Yeah, for sure. And it's also, again, I think impressive on the back foot in terms of initiative. Rebel Resource able to still put out these threats. I think Steady might have wanted to contest a little bit more units instead of going for this big buff.
Now I don't know what's going on with that Darien raid. Does Steady have some way to like maybe he can like ECL a Sindari Peacekeeper or something here, take out that Sabine now that it's been softened up? They're adjusting the life totals.
Yeah, there was a miscalculation, but 22 damage on Steady's base. So somehow they
No,
missed
no, no.
5 damage.
It's 17.
Oh,
It's
17.
17.
Oh, they just made the 5s, basically. They made
Yeah,
it
yeah.
easier to read. I was like, well,
If
there's an
it
extra
were
5 here, but
22,
no,
this game would basically be over.
that's what I mean. I mean, it's pseudo over anyway, but yeah, we are seeing the ECL,
ECL. Is it what do we got? Oh, it's on the
and
oh, spicy. That's why
red
that Daring Raid came
5,
out. So red
but it still
5
doesn't kill the Sabine.
no, but it puts the damage on her, and then if it gets to attack again, it will clear her.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just sad
Oh,
about it
wow.
because it's so many actions to kill this Sabine unit.
No, Steady's gonna attack with his Sabine leader to finally defeat Rebel Resources buffed Sabine. Oh, wow. Oh, man, this is not good for Steady. I think that's game.
Wow.
Yeah, so they sort of shortcutted that, but it was sneak attack into wing leader, buffing Sabine. So Sabine can then swing for 5, and the wing leader can then swing for 2, and that's lethal. So Rebel Resource went so fast that he defeated Steady on turn 3.
Yeah, that was a nasty hand he had. And like I said, I feel like as Sabine ECL with initiative, it might have been smarter to contest arenas as opposed to trying to push your own damage. But he went for the arena dodge and then kind of paid the price there with all those buffs and sneak attack.
Yeah, that was harsh. Sabine Yellow with a very strong win. Congrats to Rebel Resource. This is the deck that he has been running and that he has been talking up for quite some time, and he was able to demonstrate it on stream here.
Yep, and like cheer up, emo kids has pointed out in chat. Not a single new card played for Sabine Cunning, and took that down very fast. Would be interested to see if there was any new cards in the list, or is he just running tried and true kind of classic Sabine Cunning? But unfortunately, we got a sneak peek at some Jump to Lightspeed cards in Sabine ECL, but it was nowhere near enough. And as he fans deck out, we do also see a Sabine's Masterpiece. I think he's
Yes.
asking what if I think he asked, are you running any Jump to Lightspeed cards? And we see a new Han Solo unit pilot that is in the deck.
Yeah, the Sabine's Masterpiece is very strong, especially if you have led off with a green
Green
unit.
command unit, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Then you can ECL it and use the on attack ability to give it +1 experience. So it's essentially ambushing as a 4/4, which will clear almost any space starter and leave your unit still on the board.
Mm-hmm. And for anyone wondering, in this first pool, we do have 116 players out of 128 cap. So a huge first event here for Jump to Lightspeed.
Yeah. We will see what happens now. I'm not sure, but I believe that the Denver event will have likely hundreds of players. And I don't know what the final total is going to be,
I believe
but
it's capped at
I think
1,000. There's 300 allocated at each sector for VIP entrance, which you can
okay.
purchase, and then 700 for the general admission.
Okay.
We have seen on via Richmond, which is in a couple weeks, that other sector has completely sold out of VIP slots.
Yeah, interesting.
And then there's for the general. So that event already has about 500 players.
Very interesting.
Yeah, Denver has not sold out of VIP tickets yet. So if you're mulling it over, you can still grab some extra promos on your entry. So I would assume it's probably pretty close, but because it was run originally through event through Melee, like the other events,
glitching a bit, a little bit of lag on the audio.
I would assume it's probably pretty close between
All right.
right now, probably around 300 players.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you now. There's a little bit of lag going on. Still lagging.
Ah, there he is. Your audio's not coming through, at least to me.
Testing. Hello? Can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me
Rebel
now?
Resource,
Nope.
can you hear us?
Sorry. I thought I was a loud person. I'm not loud enough. Can you guys hear me?
There you are. There's that
Yeah, there we go.
iconic
Awesome.
voice.
Hello. Y'all watching my match?
Yeah.
We did. We
Yeah,
did.
dude. Congratulations on the win. You know, you have been a big supporter of Cunning Sabine from very early on in the game, and just had a pretty convincing win with it against the more common and Sabine ECL build. But you had quite a strong win.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, my opponent was just complaining. He's like, "You have Bamboozle. You're playing Darksaber. I can't play mine because you have Bamboozle. You have yours. You have 5 more HP." It was it was this set feels like, to be honest, if you're going to be playing Yellow Sabine, it'd be this set, the Han Solo upgrade. I just played multiple Django's today, won every single match, and Django is by far the number one deck I'm seeing in the 3v3. 30 out of 32 teams had it today, and I'm seeing it everywhere. And this deck is really, really good into Django. So, Tower number 9, I know that you were messaging me about it yourself, actually, and how much you've been liking the deck as well. So, I've been
Oh
playing it.
yeah, I've been playing Cunning Sabine. I think our decks are a little different, but it's no. I mean, and I've also been finding that it's been quite effective against Django, and that's a good spot to be in this meta. We were talking earlier. What do you think? Where do you think the weak points of the deck are, if any?
Yeah, I lost in the 3v3 today. I think that sometimes you can brick when you're looking for answers. You can brick into wing leaders with no board, but that can apply to any version of Sabine. So that is something I've struggled with. I think the lack of smuggle in the deck. I've been wanting things like Hotshot Blaster to have more pump access. There are many games today in the 3v3 that I ended up winning, but I was like, oh man, I decidedly would have won this game if I had a Hotshot Blaster in the row. I didn't have to draw the pump and go on variance. I had a guarantee pump. And that's a huge ability to mitigate variance in your deck as much as possible. And I think that Blonde Sabine right now probably has a little too much variance with your opening plays. But when you get good cards, I played a Green Sabine before this match. Both games, 2-0'd. Black 1 into R2. Almost nothing in the deck besides suiciding the Sabine Masterpiece into it with the green unit out can stop it. So there's a lot of lines where it's just like you just completely have an unkillable unit into Han Yellow. You can kill their Falcon. You need to do these kind of plays to get ahead. This game right now is all about cheating stuff out. If you notice, Django is cheating stuff out. Han has all about that. So if aggro is going to compete, it needs to press damage early and make your early units essentially uncontestable. So you have L3 for that. You have Black 1 and A-Wing with the R2 combo. And in some decks, you're okay playing a 2-3 in the space or ground arena and then wing leadering it. But you really need to guarantee, keeping your turn 1 unit alive. Every game that I've had my turn 1 unit killed or defeated, I've not done well. I've lost that match historically in set 4. I used to be able to come back, but not as much anymore.
Yeah, and I know you were saying the game has a lot of things that are about cheating things out, and we saw an impressive cheating something out play from you with that sneak attack wing leader.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like a lot of people are like, oh, what are your sneak attack targets? K2 and Fleet. That's a niche card. But people forget that there are cards in the deck that are really there because of their when played ability, not because the card themselves is actually super strong. And Wing Leader is one of those cards. It's a card if I could play it for 2, I'd be super happy. And when I can and get the value out of it before it's pinged off by Django or Quinlan or whatever, or you can even heroic sack it, right? It's a great heroic sack target. So there's a lot more, resource manipulation you can do where you can start to stay on par with a Han Yellow where you're like double playing cards you have no business playing when they're doing the same thing. So you really have to be able to do those types of things. That's one of the reasons why I think Green Sabine doesn't do well in the Han is because Green Sabine is so linear. But if you're going to be or Han 1 cunning double cunning Han, you got to be able to get ahead and cheat out this stuff and essentially push as much damage by the 5 resource turn.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic too. I personally think that, I don't think Sabine ECL is a bad deck. I think it's been very successful. But if I were playing tomorrow, I might be playing a Cunning Sabine build, in part because I think it's also much less
Sorry, your audio cut out, Tower.
Now, what are you currently? Oh, my bad.
You're
What are
good.
you currently most excited to see on the other side of the table, and what are you most unhappy to see on the other side of the table?
I would play, if I could play 8 Django's in a row, I would play them. I do not lose that matchup often. In fact, Lego Pizza Ian was my first match. He's a top player in the game, and I 2-0'd him.
Sweet.
You know, it's just he was on Django, so it's just I don't really lose against Django. I have to get unlucky, and they have to get lucky, and that's the definition of a good matchup. And I said that last set. I played 4 Djangos in a PQ in a row, and I 2-0'd all of them. And I was like, if I could play Django every single time, I'd be so happy. That is the matchup I want to see. Believe it or not, Green Sabine is a 50-50. If they kill my early plays and they get board control with that Restore 2, I don't like that very much. And honestly, I like Han 1 Cunning because almost no Hans outside of the Bothan team have reps into Sabine Yellow. Eekfoil, top Han Yellow player, literally told me, he's like, I don't want to play you in the 3v3. If we play up against you, we're going to put a different teammate into you. He's like, I don't think I can win. He doesn't know the deck. So I think it's really, I would say the decks I don't like are the 30 HP Anakins. That's a very, very, I have to draw Valiant Assault Ship or something like that. 30 HP bases are tough. And then the mid-range blue, I call it, what is it, Jeskai, USA, Anakin blue-white. I struggle into those decks. They can just get Restore online and Village Protectors and just block me out of the game.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a but I don't think a ton of people are on those decks right now, so that's not like the worst weakness you can have.
Exactly. There's only I think Guy is on Anakin Colossus today, but he lost to Quinlan because start the game with a free Spark of Rebellion against you. So yeah, I love to see Quinlans. I mean, I just play 1-drops and dodge the Quinlan ping, and then just Wing Leader pumps, and then 4 Cause are dead. It's too easy with the 25 HP meta that we're seeing right now. 25 HP bases are everywhere, and the matchups I'm bad into kind of disappeared. They were like prevalent in set 3, like Ray and stuff like that, but I'm not seeing them very much at all.
I have a quick question, actually. With jumping on that, how are you? It's Pasquale here. So Django got so much stuff in the set, and obviously last set you had a good matchup. And why do you think that still hasn't affected you? Is it because of all like the pumps you have, like Surprise Strike, New Han, all that kind of stuff, or what is the key to success here, despite Devastators and War Juggernauts and all these massive exhaust threats?
Yeah, so let me give a little anecdote here. So when Django, all this stuff came out, the Bothan team, we figured out Django was insane within like 2 days, right? Our day even. And I was like, Sabine Yellow's done. But once I started to learn the matchup and like, I can just like claim Heroic Sack something. If they can't clear my board, they can tap my board down. But I'm often not in lethal. I'm never in check. And if I'm in check, I've probably lost my board. So if I have a board, I just need to punch 1 Surprise Strike, 1 Sneak Attack Fleet Lieutenant into 1 for a Cause, and most of the time the games are over. They're dead. And that has been really helpful. I will say Django really didn't have a way to close me out of the game in set 3. Now they have Devastator with TDR on 6, and that can just kill me. And that's why I got Leia's and Bamboozles to shut it down. So I have answers for their like high variance, high luck plays where they're able to actually sequence those things together. That's not super lucky, but if they're able to sequence that together, I can just like Bamboozle and Leia. And I did that today. Somebody played Devastator. That's GG. I actually had the Leia 2 resources open, tapped it down. I got a claim now, and you have they were on 1 HP and they were dead because they knew that I could just Sabine.
Right.
And the second thing I'll say here, this is
and you're able to kind of tap yourself out.
Yeah, I'm able to tap myself out.
I was gonna say you could also tap yourself out and then bluff like you don't have the Bamboozle, and you do for free.
Exactly, I do for free. And this is another thing. This is why Kazuda is terrible. Sabine does on average 6 damage by the end of deploy. Turn 1 ping, turn 2 ping, turn 3 ping. If you don't have initiative against Django, flip. Dirtle, use all your actions. They're probably going to tap your Falcon, flip Sabine, do 3 to base. That's 6 damage that Sabine has done against a 25 HP base. No other leader can do that. And that is why I think Sabine is one of the best decks into Django. Hi, Frank.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we were mulling over before the stream started, just like if how many Colossuses and data vaults are we going to see people push the limits with, and it doesn't seem like people are willing to experiment. Even a lot of the Piets in the 3v3 were on 30 HP and not 35. And it's interesting to see the 25 HP is still king in terms of popularity currently in this first event, but we'll see if that switches as the races are on, because it's a lot of HP, the extra or 3 or even 4 at Lake Country. Like I can see that being played in like Cad Bane, and other leaders have access to that.
Absolutely. I think losing an extra card Colossus is tough because it's not just what you see in your hand, in your opening hand, and it's the fact that it makes resourcing bad on turn 2 and 3, and that's what everyone's been saying. It's like, I don't even know what I can resource now because I have one less card that I should have had. So that's tough, but I agree. The Lando deck, the new Lando deck that was in TTI really freaked me out. I thought I was going to see a lot of that today as a Django hate deck. But yeah, well, I think we're going to start to see people going back to 30 because I've even seen some Django 30s red. So interesting.
Wow. Yeah, I'm fascinated. I think most with the base choices people are going to make after this event, heading into Denver and Richmond, seeing if things are going to switch up, because it does seem like a heavy Tarkin Town ECL meta right now, with sprinklings of the cunning 30s, as we kind of left off with Twilight Republic. But I thought we'd maybe see a little bit more diversity because we got some cool options, but people were haven't figured those out yet, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thank you so much for the interview. I'm going to take a little break, get some water before my next match.
Congratulations again. You earned it.
Yeah, good job. Later.
Really fascinating insight there from Rebel Resource on how good Sabine Cunning is being slept on still.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see whether, like, how far he makes it in this event. But I'll say, when I've been playing, I have tried some things that have not worked with Sabine Cunning. I'll tell you that much.
Sure.
But I have a more refined version that has, I'm not sure that I would go as far as he did with respect to saying that it's very favored into Django, but I've certainly been doing well in that matchup, and I feel comfortable in it. And it's a good matchup to feel comfortable in.
Yeah, and it would be really exciting to see that deck take off, because one of my I guess claim to fames within the community is the compilation of all the PQ data. I will take credit for getting Boba banned because I was the only one putting the data out there for set 1. So I'm pretty sure FFG was reading off my spreadsheet in that live stream, but that's fine. And now, Noxum and I are kind of working a little bit together with Swoo Competitive Hub to get all that sorted out. But Sabine Cunning had only 6 top 8s last set. So it'll be really interesting to see if, because of the rise of Django, if that kind of flip flops. Because Sabine ECL had 160 top 8s. So that's a pretty insane difference, 6 versus 160. So if Sabine Cunning actually has this really good matchup into this big boogeyman, would be fascinating to see if the numbers rise in Cunning's favor.
This is like, there has been a somewhat ongoing minor controversy about this, but I personally do feel that Sabine Cunning was better than Sabine ECL in the Spark of Rebellion meta, but was less popular.
Sure.
And there's been some dispute about that, and it's an interesting case.
Yeah, I mean, Surprise Strike is one card, man. That's a heck of a card to close out a game. So having access to that, yeah, and I mean, I would honestly attribute Surprise Strike to, obviously you have Cunning, but Han Cunning's big kind of success to Surprise Strike. The amount of games you win with Surprise Strike Falcon, as Sabine Cunning probably also does, is pretty massive. So yeah, it's definitely, I could see that being the case, but there's something nice about playing that shiny, rare base, just mesmerizes people.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. The someone in chat here, we got Super Rider O says that's how fast Sabine wins. There's still 20 minutes in a 50-minute match, and he was able to play 2 games and have a full interview. Yeah, we are not that close to the next round because as we were discussing, Sabine is a very fast deck. Now, sometimes you lose fast, but one way or another, the games are quicker than with double blue Iden or something.
Yeah, he could probably go eat some food too. On top of,
Yeah.
he's got enough time to do a lot of stuff. And then we have Scuba Steve asking, "Is Kazuda that bad?" I don't think he's bad per se, but I think what Rebel was trying to say was in relation to Sabine Cunning, because they're going to be similar decks. It's just able to push, in his opinion, a lot more damage than
My
Sabine, than Kazuda.
my
So
opinion is that Kazuda tends to be kind of fragile, and like things have to line up more. I also think that he is as a pilot leader, I think he is vulnerable
sure,
to upgrade removal. Um, and we'll see what happens. I wouldn't count him out entirely. I think that especially Kazuda Red can do some like kind of crazy things where you use his ability to negate the downside of heroic sacrifice and trench run,
right.
and then those events become like free pumps with upside, like trench run becomes 1 for +4 with no downside. That's like insane. We were just talking about how good surprise strike is. That's like cheaper and better.
Yeah,
Admittedly, you do have to have a fighter, but yeah. And then similarly, things like the similarly, heroic sacrifice becomes 1 for +2 attack immediately and draw a card with no downside, which is crazy.
yeah. There are some really really wild interactions with Kazuda for sure. And you mentioned that he's fragile with a pilot, but I think his big advantage is he's one of the few pilots that keeps his effect on attack. So I
Yeah,
do
it's true.
think potentially piloting with him is probably often the wrong move because you still keep the ability regardless. So I think it's again new leader, fully new concept in terms of blanking your units and stuff like that. So I just think it might be taking a little bit longer to refine, but by no means would I classify it as bad. I think maybe lower in terms of Sabine Cunning. If you get exhausted, obviously you want to hit those trench runs and heroic sacrifices in the red version, but I think it'll be interesting again, really interesting to see how the meta shifts into maybe these cunning aggro decks, as a Rebel Resource is pointing out that he beat all his Jengos today, so that's pretty exciting for the community
Yeah.
to hear that he's beatable.
Yeah, I
He bleeds.
I was saying earlier, I think that Django might be overrated, and we will have to see how things go. But I personally do think there's answers available. In fact, we Rebel Resource talking about how he's very confident into Django with Cunning Sabine, and earlier we saw the Piet Blue deck that I think has been kind of a more well-known potential answer to Django, able to execute that game plan and get the win.
Yeah, yeah, it's the even Boba, for as dominant as he was, didn't really want to sit across from a Palpatine Blue. These command vigilance pairings just in villainy do even have the Fett's number, it seems. So that's always nice to see. But again, I think the advantage heading into this set is that Han is maybe viewed as a little bit weaker, which those decks have no shot at beating really these big villainy decks because you just lose your resources to DJ, lose all your cards to Spark and Bodhi and Cunning, and so if Han is kind of pushed out a little bit, then the rise of these control decks on top of the change FFG has made to draw points, we could see a lot more of these slower control decks in the meta.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things go.
For
Okay.
sure.
I think we are going to take advantage of the ample time from those Sabine matches to
Yeah.
take a bit of a break ourselves. So we will be back with the next round of Swiss here at the Botha Network Invitational event at Cards HQ in Atlanta. I'll just
All right, everyone, we are finishing up this round here. Claire and the McClunky by T-Way. That's how you say that? Yeah. Huge thanks to them traveling, and they are. And the team epic finals tomorrow in the 3v3 against KTOD. We're super excited about that. And yeah, we'll see what round 4, the final round for. We'll be back bright and early starting at 8 a.m. With all this action. And it's going to be a long day, but hopefully some incredible Star Wars action here. Swaney27 said Boba would be better than Django if he was legal. I think you're right. There's been a lot of removal, a lot of stuff that Cunning has got that Boba can just make 2 resources cheaper. So definitely don't need him to make a return to Premiere. Be happy with the suspension. But Django is definitely strong, so but not unbeatable. Whereas as we saw in set 1, Boba was very, very strong. 2 rather, I should say. The PQ dominance was real.
Yeah, I personally think that Boba was actually stronger in set 2. I think that very good. I know Boba Fett's armor was like the big controversial one.
God.
I think in general,
The PTSD I have from Boba's armor, Jesus.
in general, he felt more manageable to me earlier on.
Obviously, in set 1, but the playing field got quite a huge gap in it once the upgrade was released, among other cards. Any leaders that people were hoping to see in Twitch chat for next round? We fingers crossed. Maybe makes a splash. So we'll see how they're doing.
I would. I talked about. I'd love to see the Unity of Purpose combo.
Yeah, players are ready.
I don't think that's what you take this kind of.
I well here. I think there a lot of players kind of sleep on stuff like that. They're like, oh, it's a gimmick. But if you actualize, it's kind of consistent at the gimmick. You definitely need to have an answer for it.
Yeah.
But that would be fun to see a breakdown, and manufactory would be
Not at all surprised if deck wins like local. Surprised if it won something really big. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I think to some of these sectors because people off card, especially in the early.
If your goal is to be
We'll
in the top 64 and the best player with Rex, if you're going for that Rex showcase, that over in normal Rex.
Some showcases, shockingly.
Eric,
Yeah, that's
art or
what I was
what?
assuming as well. That was probably a little bit of both. It does look really with carbonite boosters for set 4. All of those reasonable or pretty inexpensive, but leaders are tops the charts there for. It was a discussion we had at my locals actually. So expensive compared to other things. It's at $5.
think the there are also like I don't know. I mean, there are some leaders that I think are so unplayed that if you're competing with it, it would probably be one of the better opportunities
Mm-hmm.
to get the showcase. Like you might be the only person playing it. Everybody else thought the same thing. You know what I mean? Like some secretly pretty good deck that you've cooked up with the like I don't know, like Dr. Afra or something that is very infrequently played. You know, I think you have a pretty good shot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my biggest that's definitely something I like to do. Whether even to just be a few card choices in a deck that is popular, that can maybe give you an edge in certain matchups. Shout out to Kwaishon Jin in the chat. Anakin Blue, baby. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
Are
Robots.
you
Oh
you're a
no.
big Anakin Blue fan?
You know, I do like it. I top four Gaming's PQ, losing to Bobby Sapphire in the top four there. Been playing it a little bit into set four. I think it's being if I'm being the Django matchup can be tough, but I think there's some neat answers to it. So yeah, I think like a lot of people are kind of mulling over what I'm gonna play at these bigger events, but it's served me well so far. So definitely considering it for this first sector for sure. And I don't have the showcase, so even if I top 64, hey, there are worse things.
I hear that. I'm going to be very interested to see how those events ultimately progress and what ends up being successful and unsuccessful.
Yeah, yeah, because I mean to make at these sectors, it's definitely going to be kind of the cream of the crop in terms of what makes that cut is. So it'll be
And
what
then
decks
our
really can
standings
pull that off.
set for day 2.
Excuse me, are they
Yeah.
reset? I know if they've
Interesting.
specified. I know for the Galactics, because 3 days they will be, I believe, because you need 7 wins. But again, the final day, I'm not sure on I reset for final day.
Very interesting.
But yeah, it's definitely we'll see how that shakes out in terms of what can pull off that 7-2 record 2 days and then crack into the top 8. And coming from other games that are losing with top cuts at some of these big events, that's something I'm adjusting to is the very harsh way thing.
Yeah, that
It's
is
an intense cut.
it is a tough subscribing with Amazon Prime. You've subscribed for supporting the channel.
And big ups for the Prime as well, because that means you have to remember come back and do it. It's not an auto renew. So thanks for checking in. But super right Palp deck. Okay, I hope you mean Chancellor. That's a fun one.
Chancellor Palpatine's not
Super
saying one of the best
super
leaders,
cool.
one of the coolest leaders.
Yeah, and obviously, we all know that cunning is like probably the strongest color in the game. So the fact that you can cunning cards, really cool.
There's some stuff that it's bad at. So cunning typically doesn't have like removal or at a few, but they're like luck based.
Yeah,
Which is
yeah,
kind of an interesting niche actually. The like
yeah. What the don't get cocky
yeah,
and
I don't get cocky, and the one that's based on odds.
the new one.
Um,
Yeah, don't tell me the odds.
Yeah, and so like stuff like that, it's like
For sure.
I'm not saying those cards are. How would I put it? I wouldn't say those cards are
particularly bad or
invalid.
strong.
I
Sure.
wouldn't say they're invalid, but I would not say that they're.
But we thank you for sticking with us here for this final round of first day here, pool 1. Okay. Looks like a Han Cunning has already hit the table. Yeah, S Blue Jay situations going on in the store right now. So, but when it fixes itself, it's pretty clean. So hopefully that happens soon.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that goes.
Gentleman Jack TV, subscribe with Prime. Thank you so much. It looks like a Piet Blue again. Oh, it's Craw. Craw has come back to the stream.
Well, we saw Krog get a nice win with his Piet Blue earlier against Django. Let's see what he can do this time around.
Yeah, this is not the matchup he wanted to see today, that is for sure. Sitting across from Mahan Cunning, typically a strong matchup into these control villain decks. Piet could have a little bit of an edge because it, is a little bit faster than some of the older Cunning or command villainy control decks, but still Han should be doing a little bit of work in this matchup. We'll see if it plays out. And Claire is confirming the internet tanked, so that's a bummer.
All right, let's see what happens here.
All right, we'll be back shortly. Well, given this matchup pairing, at least we'll get a little bit of a longer game than Sabine Mirror. So we'll get some extra action, but we'll see if the DJ Tech combo hits the table. That can kind of crash the hopes and dreams of these villain decks pretty quickly if it goes off.
Yeah, we'll have to see what happens.
Hey. All right. Seems like it's back on. Han's beginning with a temporary resource, and Piet has Dr. Pershing.
All right.
Bodhi Rook to begin for the Han player here.
Yeah, it looks like he sees a
Takedown and prepare for
takedown and
takeoff.
prepare for takeoff. Prepare for takeoff is the one that he chooses to remove.
Yeah, I think
There's
that's a
also an
smart choice.
Inferno 4 in hand.
Yeah, that's a really weak hand for Piet, so you do not want them adding two very strong capital ships to their hand.
Let's see what happens next here. I do think that with Dr. Pershing on the board, Piet's probably going to be able to draw into some more cards. So insofar as the hand was weak to begin with, it may not stay that way.
We are seeing a jetpack on this Bodhi Rook, though, which can clear... Oh, no, that's what he blew up. I'm sorry.
Oh,
Okay,
the resource he discarded.
yeah.
So Power of the Dark Side clears Bodhi.
Yeah, that's
Han's
a
ability
smart
used.
shout. Okay. Kira. I feel like you probably call the takedown here.
Yeah, maybe.
There's
What is that other card?
It's Power of the Dark.
Probably Annihilator?
I think that's
No, because it was horizontal
Devastator.
orientation.
No, it would have to
It's
be
only
Annihilator.
Annihilator and Executor,
Yeah.
and Executor is bad.
Executor. Yeah, I would assume undefeated Piet player is not playing Executor, but yeah, it's definitely Annihilator.
Yeah. Also, like I don't know. To be Executor is like not like complete total garbage. It's just like not Annihilator is a lot more impactful.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right, so Kira clears out Pershing, and then we see it looks like a Corvus being sent onto the field here, using that Piet discount to bring it out early.
Oh, there's the tech I had mentioned. See if he has the DJ for next turn. Now this puts Piet in an interesting position where he kind of has to flip first action, or he might not be able to.
Hmm.
Because I do believe Kira called takedown, so he cannot take down the tech for 5 resources. But he's having some thoughts here on the resource decision into this turn.
What will he do? What would you do?
I couldn't see his entire hand. I think he made the right choice. But yeah, there's the overwhelming barrage. He has to kill the tech. He cannot risk the DJ coming off for free like
Hmm.
that. I think he resourced Charlton, which I think was the correct choice based on the game state here,
Okay.
because he has the fleet. With the Sentinel in his hand for next turn, which is pretty good. A lot of stats on the board. We have a temporary resource being created, and he swings in for 6 here. All right, so we have the 4 to 7 turn here, or the 5 to 7 turn here. So we still can see a DJ here. So now the question is, does Piet flip?
What would your move be here?
I think given his hand, you don't want to flip Piet because he doesn't really have something to play, but he chooses to do it
Oh, he goes
anyway.
for it.
Yeah, it's an interesting shout here by him to try and do that. He didn't really seem to need a double discount.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes with Piet, you do want to save the flip so until you get that Avenger. But doing it this way, if you flip early, now your Piet can die and then you'll never get the double discount. You know what I mean? So sometimes I think
Hmm.
holding back the deploy, even though it's going to be delayed a turn. And like I said, and he lost the resource anyway, so I guess he can still drop the Sentinel now because it's still too cheaper for the moment, but not sure it was fully worth it to lose the powerful flip effect for um, a Sentinel space that your opponent's kind of ignoring here.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, it's interesting to consider. This game is definitely one that can lead itself to some complicated situations, but I
Yeah,
do think Kraz Piet doesn't look like he's going to live too much longer, and might have been better to wait and try to get some of those bigger ships out at like you said, a more impactful time.
yeah, and exactly. The Han trades in, and now you don't even get the double discount. You don't. Yeah, so it was
Not
putting 2
great.
damage into Han didn't accomplish anything. That was a move that definitely Eekfoil was very happy to see. And as someone who played a lot of Han Cunning and had a top 8 with it in set 2, I would have been also very happy to see Piet flip with no resources open.
Hmm.
But as a new leader and a new style of deck, I don't fault Croft for kind of having that choice there to do it. But I think Piet is similar to kind of Emperor Palpatine in the sense that you want to flip him only when you need to. You don't have to flip Palp on turn 8 to steal nothing or a not valuable unit.
Yeah, you might want to save that for the right opportunity.
Exactly, and I think Piet, even though he deploys so much earlier, is actually a very similar leader where you want to only deploy him when that 2 resource discount is actually valuable because his stats aren't going to do anything for you.
Hmm.
But Han is definitely pressing his advantage now. Has a lot of open resources, 8 damage on the base, and Kira is shielding him from takedown. All right, Entrench comes out on Han Solo. So no more free resources as long as he avoids the ground arena.
Yeah. And I do think that a Piet Dex endgame is often going to be ignoring that ground arena. But the question is,
100%.
can he find things that will allow him to, fire off that overwhelming barrage, that turbo laser salvo, other effects that will clear ground stuff and might be tough. And he's getting hit by DJ.
Yeah, a second DJ comes out just totally ignoring the fact that you're at probably 8 resources to Piet's 4. Really a rough spot for this deck, and like I had mentioned, probably a matchup Kra was hoping to avoid today.
Yeah, now we'll see what he can do. I do think that at least some of the Piet decks have things like the CR90 relief ship or whatever that thing is called, which itself provides more restore and also when defeated can provide some healing for your base. It is possible, even if he can't get to his really big endgame stuff thanks to the DJ hits, that Kra will be able to bring out some restore to mitigate the damage coming in the ground arena and buy himself some more time. But we'll have to see how it goes.
Yeah, and Corvus is restoring 2 every time,
Right.
and is putting some damage on the base already. So all
Yeah.
hope's not lost, but he's far behind here. Far behind where his
Interesting, yeah.
game plan would like to be anyway.
Right.
And because he put the perishing out, Han will get that trigger. So, going to be interesting to see what he can do with his abundance of resources. Yeah, he clears that for free. He should take a resource here. It's mandatory. He hasn't done it yet. Okay, there he is. But a cunning here could be very powerful, but he might be worried about a second overwhelming barrage for 6 here. But he's looking at the 4 resources. Is it cunning? He's mulling it over. The deck doesn't play too many 4 resource options. It's 3 instead. He's going to search for that overwhelming barrage. I'm sure of it. That's what he's hoping to hit. And yeah, take down a resupply. Yeah, now he knows he's safe to cunning to his heart's desire here. Get in for a lot of damage this turn if he has it.
Takes the resupply.
Yeah, the takedown costs 8, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's just interesting because he takes the resupply, but then Kra can just play the resupply carrier here.
Yeah.
I feel like,
yeah,
I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah,
Like,
it's kind of like an irrelevant unit in space for you. You're not really playing to that
I mean,
arena
it
right
like
now.
makes him race a little faster, I guess.
Yeah, and you weren't getting rid of that play specifically anyway, so at least you get rid of the double ramp, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah,
But we'll
and I think you raised a good point also with like Kira increasing the cost of the takedown, so it costs what, 7?
Yeah, 7.
Although I don't know, he's gonna be there. But yeah, I don't know. That
You would love to see him take down for 7 and fully tap out
No,
next
it's
turn.
true.
I'll
I
say
mean, it
that.
means
So
everything else that you play it just goes through. I think and if you is that another DJ? What is that?
no, it's a hot shot blaster
Oh,
for
hot shot to
5
buff the
damage to the
DJ.
base.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought we were
Okay,
gonna
so
see that
now
third DJ there.
that would have been savage, to say the least. A third one this
Oh.
early. We'll see if he's got another pump for Kira to really push the damage. No, he's gonna take him to 17.
Still a lot of damage coming through. Now that Han is entrenched, but and tech as well. I don't know. If I'm Kra, I am not feeling happy about this situation.
Yeah, Han's kind of gotten everything they wanted. Double DJs, double techs, you Kira, you double bodied. This is a dream scenario for Eekfoil. Wow.
But it is
So
not over
many
yet.
resources. No,
Now,
but
if Kra could The other thing is several of these units have a lot of HP. So even if Croft found that turbo laser salvo, it wouldn't actually do the trick here.
Yeah,
Or
no, his
well,
units are too weak.
it would clear Bodhi, it would clear Kira, but DJ and Tech would still be alive.
Yeah, and he's representing 5, 11, 14, 15, 16, 16 damage. So he is lethal, actually, without the Han attack even.
No, is that lethal or is that off by 1? I couldn't tell if that was 13 or 15. I guess it was 15.
Yeah, he's got 3,
Okay.
right? 3, 6, 8, 8. Okay, yeah. So he can take him to 28 without a pump, but
Now we do have a Lieutenant Childson, but the problem is that entrenched Han can just kill Childson in one hit, and this isn't going to slow
oh,
down
but
any
he's got a
damage.
bouncer.
And yeah, he doesn't even need to do that. I think this one's pretty over here. You know, we could see there is a power of the dark side in Kraw's hand, but
Yeah, you would just kill the Cantina bouncer or anything exhausted because one pump ends the game here.
yeah, or you could just lose Han because he can't attack base anymore. I don't know. It doesn't really seem like it would be that threatening to eke foil. And at this point, I don't know what Craw could possibly draw that would win him this game. Like,
Yeah, he's put a lot of damage on base, but it's not enough.
yeah, and yeah, he could. Oh, you know what? He could have that would win outflank. If he's playing outflank, he could use that and attack with both his units and actually
That's
win.
actually a
But I
good
don't think that's
shout.
gonna happen.
Yeah, that's hilarious. That's exact lethal.
That would be so sick if it happened, but I don't think so. Oh, and there's the Falcon.
The
That's gonna
Falcon
close
for
things
game.
up.
Yeah, yeah. There's so many avenues to victory there. A hot shot, a Falcon, a surprise strike, a cunning. So
Craw
it was
was able to
unlikely.
handle Django pretty well earlier, but this is sort of the nightmare for these kind of endgame oriented blue-green villain decks is the Han player repeatedly hitting you with DJ and deramping you.
Yeah, it is. It is the kryptonite to say the least. I think Han completely pushed the deck out of the meta after a very early start in Twilight Republic by like the Bosk Blue and these Palpatine decks were very popular early on. But once Han decks got pretty refined, it became almost impossible to play them at high level events.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that might change. But I do think DJ is a big obstacle. Now, one thing that's kind of interesting to me is that you can potentially use aggression because that gives you access to some cards that can answer a DJ, most notably Forced Choke.
Yeah, Force Choke. You also get access to Champ Sadula because it is just aggression. So you could even get
Right.
your resource back and then still flip Piet.
But Forced Choke can still be removed by Bodhi. Just having that in your deck is not a complete answer.
Yeah.
And maybe you have your Forced Choke, you have your takedowns. You could be playing 6 events that can kill Tech or DJ. That's something. But I'm not sure. I do think that
Yeah.
Piet Red is probably not as good as Piet Blue into the general field, but there are some good capital ships in Red. I don't know. Could be
Yeah, I was
interesting.
about to mention. I think that's maybe why they're in blue is because I think the red version is probably weaker into Django, and if you're expecting a lot of Django, you have to make that call for yourself as to which base you're going to opt into. But I think you're right that the aggression version is probably better into Han, for sure. Even sticking an early capital ship into planetary bombardment, having them to deal 12 indirect, is quite a lot of damage for Han, who typically doesn't play a ton of units. Obviously, that game he was able to stick them all, but you don't normally get that many out at once. All right, shuffling up for game 2. It'd be interesting to see what Piet can bring in here to help shore up this matchup because it's definitely going to be a tough one.
Now, in our earlier match with Craw versus the Django player, he did lose that first game and then came back with 2 quite solid wins in game 2 and 3 to take the match. So we will see. I'm not counting Craw out just yet. Maybe he can make another impressive comeback here on the stream.
For sure. I mean, definitely don't count him out, and don't count out the deck either. I mean, if Han doesn't hit a DJ like that, and you're able to get an early Avenger, it can be scary even for Han players to deal with that. So we'll have to see if how if Eekfoil can get that DJ again. That'll definitely probably result in something similar, I would imagine, but we'll see. Maybe there's some answers in the side deck for Craw to help get rid of that pesky DJ before it permanently steals the resource.
Yeah, and that permanent ability to remove the resource is tough. Tough.
Yeah, and while Command did get some interesting generic removal cards finally, because it's been pretty lacking, a lot of them have to deal with the Space Arena. So we'll be interested to see if any of these new cards make an appearance to help in this case.
What do you think of that EMP that's been going around? Probably not relevant for Craw here. But we saw, I think
EMP.
yes, there's a card called Electromagnetic Pulse. I think it's a 1-cost cunning event, and it does.
Yeah, 2 damage and
It's
exhaust, right? That's the exhaust
yeah,
one.
but the target has to be a droid or a vehicle, and it can't target a base.
Yeah, I think it's quite strong. I don't obviously it's a cunning card, so I don't know if Craw would play that,
No,
but
Craw wouldn't be playing it.
you're
But
saying for Eekfoil to maybe exhaust a big ship?
yeah,
Yeah, it could be an option. I think it's quite powerful in the Django as a 1-cost kill P-38 and things like that. So
yeah, and
yeah,
also potentially exhaust something that comes in from a triple dark raid or a sneak attack. That's some nice
100%.
utility there.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting side deck card. I think people were trying into the main, but it's a little too niche into the full field to be a main deck card. But definitely a big fan.
All right, here we go. Craw leads off with Inferno 4.
All right.
Eekfoil has used Han's ability here, creating a Craw sent at least one of those cards and maybe both of them to the bottom of the deck. Liberated Slaves, 3-cost, 3/5 vanilla.
A pretty good one. I don't want to take credit for that being in Han, but I might have been the first top 8 deck to play it.
Yeah. It's funny because I think one of the biggest instances where there was some degree of power creep in the game was that in set 1, the standard was 3 for 3/4 in the ground arena.
For sure.
And set 2 printed several cards that were 3 for 3/5. So in set 1, there was Boba Disintegrally and considered above the curve and one of the most
Yep.
expensive cards in the set. Not counting showcases. And set 2 comes out, and there are a bunch of 3-cost 3/5s, often with abilities that are very strong. Like Cassian Andor is like crazy. Like he's 3 for 3/5 with a good trait,
Yep.
and Liberated Slaves at 3 for 3/5 vanilla is a totally playable card.
Yeah, for sure. It was I would honestly say a big reason I was able to top with Han Cunning in the Boba meta. It was very strong in my deck. I played it with jetpacks back then. 5/5 shielded. Was pretty good heading into a Boba flip turn. And it's still pretty strong as a vanilla 3/5. Sometimes these vanilla stat lines looking are very sticky, and they have gotten power crept yet in these colors, so important to have them.
The now it looks like we're seeing Akira, and what Eekfoil is deciding on. Now, interestingly, Craw actually has 2 different Sentinels. There is also the ATRT there. The
Yeah.
new Vigilance one. It is a 4-cost. It looks like Eekfoil. It doesn't matter what Eekfoil chose because Power of the Dark Side was.
Yeah, for sure. I think I think the RTs were probably sided in because he got a lot of ground presence that game, and that's
Yeah,
a
the
very annoying
Perimeter
stat line to deal with.
ATRT.
So
4-cost 3/5. It does actually have the Republic trait if you happen to be building a Republic deck, and yeah, 3/5 Sentinel. nice French vanilla.
Yeah, it's not a bad talent on 4
Yeah.
for sure. Um, all right. We're headed into the Piet flip turn potentially, and even the Han flip turn. Coming out a turn early thanks to his own ability. The question is there a DJ in the row? But I think knowing what Craw had, which I believe he saw the entrenched as well, so flipping Han probably just going to get stuffed with the entrenched here. And there it is. So no DJ available, thanks to stopping the Han attack. And I think he's mulling over a Falcon, or he just goes right for a Liberated Slaves. Okay. And the Onyx Squadron Brute comes out, which has a nice when defeated to heal the base. Yeah. And then the Falcon clears the Brute because Piet's at full HP, and I think that was the correct choice there. No need to leave that up. Now the question is, do you keep the Falcon out, or do you balance it to heal it? Because you did use a temporary resource, so the Falcon is technically free to keep in play.
Yeah, the only problem is
It dies to the Inferno.
right.
Yeah.
There is an argument maybe for bringing it back, but
It does appear he kept it.
yeah,
It's tempting when you have that free tax. You're like, I don't want to bounce it and replay it, but
maybe he has other things he's planned to do with his
and
resources this turn, and he's fine with at least getting his opponent's Inferno 4 off the field. This does give Kra an opportunity to filter, though.
yeah.
4 versus
I think
Onyx.
I like Inferno 4 a little bit less in this current meta. That's so fast, but I think they're both serve a purpose in the deck.
Yeah, I could easily see someone also being like, oh, I want more small space units. I'll just play both of them. Or like maybe I'll play 1 Inferno 4 and 2 Onyx Squadron Brutes so that the unique on the Inferno 4
Yeah,
is
for
never
sure.
a
And we've
downside.
also noticed this game that Craw has held back the Piet flip, unlike last game where he flipped it a little too soon and didn't get any value. So now he's held off.
And that is
and
especially relevant, I think, with that entrenched on Han, because Han could kill Piet in 1 hit.
yeah, it's tough to do it now, but it's still important that once the Han is dealt with in some fashion, your Piet's kind of free reigning now with this static discount.
Is he up to 8 resources now?
I believe so. Yeah, the resupply
Avenger
carrier
could land this turn with the reduction from even just the standard one cost reduction.
Yeah. This is a very good start for Craw. Dodging DJ, powering the Kira, keeping Han's board very light, and heading into a big potential 9 cost capital ship turn is where you want to
Now,
be.
Eekfoil did bring out Zori Bliss last turn.
Yeah, really powerful card for these exact moments when Han gets stopped.
Craw
It's a
doesn't
6th
like his
cost smuggle.
options, fires off Prepare for Takeoff to search for some capital ships that are more to his liking, I think.
Yeah, it's obviously a bit of a bummer considering where he is, that he didn't have the perfect curve here, but I'm sure he'll find something for next turn. But it's definitely going to slow him down in terms of pumping out the damage here. But he's only at 7 damage on his base, so he's looking pretty strong.
Could be worse.
Yeah, and we saw what worse looked like last game.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
malevolence.
the game with 0 DJs so far is looking very different than the game with 2 DJs.
Yep. But yeah, Zori Bliss, very strong smuggle for 6 with a really good stat line. So still making an appearance, a card that was heavily written off in on release in Shadows of the Galaxy, but has found a nice home in Han Cunning. Liberated Slaves makes the damage on base equal at 10. And Piet uses their ability to drop the fleet I can never remember the last part of that name.
The
Indirector?
fleet interdictor.
Interdictor. That's the name of that card. Interdictor.
In the Star Wars lore, this is a type of ship that can prevent other ships from jumping into hyperspace
Ah,
or like
cool.
pull them out of it.
Right. I know I can see the visual exactly perfectly of what that does in the universe now.
All right.
Didn't
So
know what it was
then
called.
Enfys Nest showing up and bouncing the
Resupply carrier.
yeah.
And now it looked like a Falcon.
I think it was
destroyed.
Lando's Falcon, but I don't think it was played. I think it was
Oh, discarded from
a
Zori Bliss is what
discarded
happened.
resource, maybe.
No,
Oh, from Zori. Got it. Yeah.
yeah, it had to be discarded from hand. Yep.
That's right.
But now Han has a arena with Enfys and Zori Bliss.
Yeah.
So-
What? I mean, Craw though. Craw is in range for his biggest plays. He could, he could potentially throw down a Devastator, kill Enfys Nest, and be in a pretty nice spot. Although I don't know, there would still be at least some damage coming in from Zori and from the liberated slaves. But at that point, Craw would plausibly even be out racing. Though we'll have to see if he can pull it off. No, it's going to be Malevolence. Now that's not exactly a bad card to see. He's going to be able to use that to debuff Enfys, make it so that she can't attack, and it does have restore for future turns to help race even faster.
Yeah, I think the issue that Craw's probably feeling right now is kind of a fear of waylay, and just the amount of cards that Han can still play after a waylay. So despite putting out big units, I'm sure he's feeling the pressure of kind of not hitting that perfect curve and having to go for that prepare for takeoff last turn, and then not even finding the Avenger or Devastator. He found the Malevolence, which he just played. So I think he has not drawn into the big things that he was hoping to get out a turn sooner.
I do think it's conceivable. Another threat is Zori Bliss, or I'm sorry, Enfys Nest, especially with an attack pump, can bounce a lot of things.
Yeah, one hotshot blaster, and that basically nothing but those giant capital ships are safe. So yeah, definitely that's a card that needs to be handled. So we'll see where this Han player is able to get that boost. Zori is going to go in and get a new card.
All right.
The race is close, though. The race is close. 14-16 with some big threats on the board. There's a Bodhi Rook. Laser Salvo. Gone. Craw was probably really hoping to wipe Han's entire board with that Turbo Laser Salvo on the Malevolence next turn, but unfortunately it got snuffed out by Bodhi Rook. However, if Equil doesn't have a waylay, there it is. As I'm about to commentate that.
Oh man, waylay followed by a Spark of Rebellion there to clear it out of the hand.
I was about to say,
what Crawl wants to see.
Yeah, without a waylay, that Malevolence still hitting for 7, restoring 2, 9-point swing. Not the case anymore.
Did Craw find something else that he can use to get out of this situation? He is in big trouble now.
Yeah. Without an answer to the Enfys Nest, you kind of have to open attack with with your one unit, and that doesn't feel great. He needs another Turbo Laser Salvo or Overwhelming Barrage, but doesn't look like he got it with his hand on the card already.
Goes in for a swing. Now he has really done a lot of damage, up to 22 damage. Potentially could do an Overwhelming Barrage and a swing to close the game next turn, but will Efoil get there first? Craw only has 13
Yeah, there's plenty of
HP
lethal on
left.
board with any pumps. And
Oh,
yeah.
and there's the hot shot on Enfys bouncing the fleet interdictor. I think that's probably going to do it. I'm not sure how Kra could, unless he has a super laser blast. I think he's in massive trouble now.
Yep. Yeah, and I think he actually did draw a turbo laser salvo, but the fleet interdictor only having 6 attack wouldn't be enough to clear Zori or Enfys at 7
Yeah.
HP. So he really needed that malevolence to stick.
Yeah, if that malevolence had stayed on the field, he could have fired the turbo laser salvo and actually wiped the board, except for the entrenched Han who can't attack the base. He would then be in a very strong position. But the difference between 6 and 7 in this case, I think, was the difference between winning and immediately taken out by the entrenched Han. And I don't know how Kra can get out of this one now.
Yeah, I don't think he has any sentinels to buy time, and yeah, it's just an inferno for to watch his base blow up, basically. And there's the fist pump, and he's revealing he drew his second turbo laser salvo, but had nothing good enough to wipe the board. I guess maybe Equal saying you could have just fired it anyway to kill the Bodhi and the liberated slaves and put 6 damage on the other 2 units. You don't technically die this turn to just the hot shot and the Zori Bliss attack, but I guess he felt like it wasn't enough anyway.
Yeah.
So he went for the attack instead.
Definitely a closer game than what we saw in the first round of this match, but ultimately Kra was still unable to get there against double yellow Han. Eekfoil is going to take the win.
Yep, and it's still like what I mentioned earlier is the big kryptonite, the boogeyman of these control decks is Han Yellow. And Kra unfortunately was able to take out Django, which I'm sure he was hoping to see all day, and probably corrected his assumption. But in round 4, ended up playing his worst matchup, and Eekfoil was able to show exactly why Han Cunning is so feared by these villain control decks.
Yeah,
But-
the double DJ in that first round was just brutal to see, and he, even against a deck that has ample tools for getting to those end game ships, the power of those DJs was able to stop that, stop those end game plays from seeing the field.
Yep. And even without them, you're able to see the power of targeted discard that Han has with Bodhi and Spark, and then Kira selectively making something out of range of even Piet's ability. So there's so many tools that these cunning decks have without even playing a cunning. I don't think we saw one cunning played on the Han Cunning players. In 2 games, never even needed to play it, and was still able to convincingly win here in this control mirror, or control deck. So interesting turn of events. But that game was more nuanced, had a lot more decisions because Piet was able to keep their resources. So, but yeah, tough one. Tough one. I do not envy Piet playing into that deck.
Yeah, tough situation, and really that sort of situation from double yellow Han is as you were saying, kind of a big part of why these more late game control oriented villainy decks have been kind of falling out of the meta. At least for the ones that try to go really late. We did still see some like Kira's and stuff that are kind of soft control, but the harder control builds have really struggled against DJ in particular.
Yeah, Kira, even the 30 HP started to fall out of favor because you needed the ECL answer to the DJ attack combo or the Han leader, wherever you are in the game. But yeah, that's the tough part about not having that 25 HP instant action on the ambush. You just don't have the answer in the same way. You're relying on a strong 4 cost thing sticking, and then a good overwhelming barrage. And Kira's ability to even get out and trade herself with her event-like ability is pretty massive for the villain
One
deck.
other thing I'll say about that is 25 HP with that ECL might put you in a better position to answer some things, but is really not where you most want to be against Sabine.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, it's a trade-off that, you have to make the call going into these events. What do you think will be played? What do and what is the best choice for you? Do you need the extra HP for these kind of more mid-rangey hero control decks? Are you afraid of aggro? And we're seeing that right now it's seems like a heavy Django presence, but you're still seeing some old faithfuls pull through like Sabine Cunning and Han Cunning as well.
Yeah.
On the stream camera here, we see Sunny D. I'm interested to know if he's still playing Han Green. Hopefully he makes it. I'll, do we want? Yeah, we can interview
Okay.
Foil. I think we'll have an interview coming on.
Yeah.
Would love some insight into the brain of a Han player going into an assumed Django format.
I can't hear them.
All right. Can you hear us? Yeah, we can hear you.
I can't hear
I
you,
think
yes.
it seems to be working.
Yes. I can hear you.
Great.
Sounds good. Congrats on the win.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a good matchup for Han, I think. It was the first matchup I felt really good about of Swiss today, so always happy to see blue-green control.
What were your other matchups?
So round one, I was into. Well, I guess I take back my earlier statement because round one was against a Rex droid manufactory, the Unity of Purpose deck. And that was
It happened. Somebody brought it.
It happened. They got tech DJ'd though. I'm sorry, everyone. Han's a no fun type deck. And then round two, I was against a Hero Boba Yellow. And then round three was a Django, which is what I'm looking to avoid, but I was able to take that in like a super close game three.
Nice. And so you said blue-green villain is something you're very happy to see usually.
Absolutely. I think Han Yellow has a very good matchup into control, especially into, like the harder control that runs very few units. If you just play to DJ them and win off of the resource advantage in the late game with tech, and you can smuggle like Waylays, Sparks or Rebellions, Cantina Bouncers out of the resource row, you have a really consistent and straightforward path to victory there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in especially the first game of that match, I think we really saw that in action with the double DJ resolution, really setting your opponent far behind.
Yes, and against these blue-green villain decks, they don't have any pump spells or damage from hand, so I'm able to let like a 6 power ship attack my base a few turns in a row. I just have to make sure I'm not like one attack away from lethal. And once I'm able to get to those insane resource counts, I can play like Cunning plus Surprise Strike plus Blaster all in one turn to push like insane amounts of damage to close the game at once.
Yeah, for sure. In the second game, we saw obviously no DJ in sight and still kind of heavily in control because, like you said, you weren't worried about your life total. I'm curious though. You said you're trying to avoid Django today, but I think most people would assume he's going to be heavily prevalent. So do you have some tricks up your sleeve to kind of help that? Obviously, you beat Django the round previous. You said it was close, but are you how are you maneuvering in a world where Django is now going to be very heavily played?
Yeah, that's right. So I think last set the Han Django matchup was roughly even to some people thought it was Django favored, some people thought it was Han favored. In this set, I think it's definitely Django favored because they have so much top end, so you can't like really play the control role and lock them out of the game. as consistently as you used to be. So I'm running stuff that helps race, like jetpack to put shield on units to buff them up. And I think going tall against Django and just like making a big unit, like put a jetpack and a blaster on it so it attacks for like 7 in one action. And that can force a Django player to claim initiative early because you can threaten like large amounts of damage in one action. And I think that has been the most effective strategy that I found.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. Putting out these units that could potentially just die to Tarkin Town or things, but Han having so many access to these 5 HP units that you are able to build up does mean that you can claim if they don't claim, and then get that extra swing off with that 7 damage before it does die. So that might be an interesting strategy going forward if we see maybe the rise of jetpack or other things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, you mentioned the 5 HP units in Han. I'm actually a very big fan of the Rebels build of Han that runs C-3PO and like the Ezra Bridger Rogue Operative. But the problem is all those units have 4 health, and so they die to ping Tarkin Town. And it can be risky to run a Rebels build in this meta. Even though they got access to the new Falcon in set 4, which is really strong, but against these Tarkin Town decks, it can just be rough.
Yeah, and I think we saw the liberated slaves coming out, which is sort of the this doesn't have as much utility as the rebels, and it doesn't have the synergy and stuff, but the number on the card is 3/5, not 3/4.
Exactly, and that 5th health matters so much in this meta.
Yeah. 5 is a breakpoint.
Yeah, definitely. They still have stuff like if they start a crafty smuggler, they can still get a favorable Tarkin Town into it, but you kind of force them to have that line.
Yeah, and you said your first round you played the Rex deck, and we were wondering if it was going to make an appearance today at all. And I'm curious if were you able to fully stop it, or did you see the power of Unity of Purpose firsthand in person?
So Unity of Purpose was not actually resolved against me. In the first game, I was able to do turn 2 tech into turn 3 DJ. And, I don't think he ever got past 5 resources that game. I mean, that's just a busted combo. I don't know why the devs didn't
Yeah.
suspend DJ. But and then in the second game, I had a weaker opening, but I held both Han, the 7-drop, and Impy's Nest in my hand, and I knew if I was able to drop those, then I could probably get control of the game, and so I was able to clear the board with the 7-drops before he could do anything with Unity of Purpose.
Nice. But it's good that you were prepared, because we were mentioning that that's something that can easily catch off players if they're kind of unfamiliar with like how explosive that combo can be. Obviously, Han has so many discard tools. There's the chance of it happening isn't the most high, but when it does, it is very powerful. So we were interested to see if anyone was brave enough to attempt it today, but got stopped by the classic these days DJ
No
tech
fun
combo.
allowed. Sorry, guys.
No, no fun allowed. We're here to win. I mean, it's a big event. There's no shame in trying hard and playing a good deck, but it is interesting that you took a deck that people, I think, are worried about in this meta. So congratulations on starting 4-0.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. And I mean, honestly, there was never any question whether I was going to bring Han Yellow or not. I've been solo maining the deck since set 2 pretty much, and I just have more reps by a huge factor on Han than any other deck. Like I actually wrote a deck guide about it, and like I started a YouTube channel, if I'm able to plug that. Like I literally started streaming
Go for it.
Han Yellow gameplay this Monday. It's youtube.com/eekfoil. I posted like a video that discusses like deck building directions for Han Yellow in set 4 and what cards I think are worth it in what situations. So if you're interested in learning about Han, check me out.
Okay, well,
That's
hey,
awesome.
yeah, and we've seen you win on stream, and maybe some of the viewers will check out you winning some matches on your YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, I do some winning. I definitely also do some losing. You know, there's a lot of Django online, and it's not easy. So I think it's
Yeah.
instructive.
So
Either
for
way.
all you anti-Han players, you can hate watch as well. You can hate watch, but
Exactly.
still watch.
I still get the
Yeah, you
viewers,
know,
baby.
That's right. Get the
DJ
viewers.
haters
Yeah, give me all
might
the
hope
hate
to see
watchers.
you pick up some. DJ haters might hope to see you pick up some losses. That's pretty funny.
For the record, I'm in
As we
favor
say
of
in
a
the
DJ
press,
ban
there or in
too.
the business, there's no bad press.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks for doing this interview. Congrats on the win, and good luck and the rest of the BIATL event this weekend.
Yeah, thanks for commentating, guys. Have a good one.
See ya.
Awesome. That was some really fascinating insight there from Eekfoil on why he took Han. Obviously, he said it was his most comfortable deck, but that he didn't want to play Django. And we saw in the 3v3 that only 2 teams didn't have Django represented on their 3v3 team. So we know it's being played, and he still said, you know what, this is what I'm comfortable with, and I'm gonna make it work.
Yeah, it's interesting too. You know, it would seem risky to me to play something where you were not confident in the matchup against what might be the most represented deck, but at the same time, you know, if you're confident enough in your other matchups and you have a ton of experience on that character and not as much on others as he mentioned, and you know, he was able to get the win when he did end up against Django. So, you know, could be quite a good decision, all things considered.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out heading into the second day here, because I think sometimes what happens you know, maybe what happened to him today is maybe he played a less experienced Django player, right? Because it's the most popular deck, might be a little bit of a bandwagon factor. But as you kind of whittle it down, you're going to be playing some of the best Django players. People have been sticking with this deck for a while, and I'm going to be interested to see how he does tomorrow. In you know, this undefeated run he's going on, if he plays any more Djangos. That's the real test, is as you climb the rankings here.
That does seem an apt point, Pasquale. I think the you know, being able to win each player and being able to win against a top competitor in the top cut, maybe 2 different things. But